Come along with me to meet Jane and Galen, two shipbuilders fiercely loyal to my cause. They are forever grateful because I saved their elderly parents during the war. Without my help, they would have starved. When I asked them to work for me, one wanted to join my guard instantly, but I shook my head, no soldiers. I needed them to build massive sturdy ships to sail the Wild Rima River. Jan looked pretty worried about it. They had worked in shipyards before, but never on this scale. Plus, that river is famously fast and violent. Still, I gave them my trust. My butler Antra would provide everything. No regrets whether we win or lose this gamble. That fired up their pride. What man does not dream of taming such a massive river? The Ra stretches for more than 10,000 meters, from the Rima Kingdom to the Great Western Ocean. Building a proper shipyard would take years, even with endless gold and labor. I could not wait, so I planned something simpler. I used my griffins to airlift soldiers over the mountain. The distance was short, each round trip took under 10 minutes. In just a single day, the griffins carried over 800 fully armed guards to the other side. My ultimate goal is sending 10,000 guards to conquer the lizardmen tribes living in those rugged mountains. Watch this play closely, because with the church guarding my home and the beast intimidated, we have nothing to worry about. The land on the other side was a completely different world. Cold damp, a dense jungle crawling with mosquitoes, venomous snakes, and wild beasts. Judging by the birds fleeing in terror, I knew massive predators lurked in the shadows. I wondered if the lizardmen noticed we had arrived so directly. But the nearest tribe was far, and they are not very smart. Even if they attacked their scattered settlements, could never beat my trained troops. Then another idea hit me. This northern land is cut off by massive peaks and the Rima River. The beastmen do not farm or explore anything here. They only raid. Could I be the very first to discover this place? After all, who else has griffins and is right here? My soldiers did not even complain about the harsh conditions. Almost all were veterans who survived the last battle with me. They cleared the camp, lit fires to ward off beasts, and pitched basic tents. The first night was brutal. Savage roars echoed through the constant darkness. Honestly, some of them were absolutely terrifying. We suspected monsters worse than tigers. I know what you are thinking, but trust me, the real tension was just getting started. Maybe saber-toothed beasts or giant serpents. Normally, I cannot just invade lands without cause. It would ruin the church's reputation. But this case is different. The lizardmen are far too foolish to ever be recognized by any of the other beast nations. 2/3 of them are not even official citizens. What I am doing counts as pioneering exploration of unclaimed territory. And it is totally legal. Nobody knows what lies beyond these massive mountain ranges bordering each continent. A mysterious force prevents anyone from flying over them. Even powerful ice dragons get their wings frozen at high altitudes and plummet straight to their deaths. It is like a giant cage trapping every race, yet within each continent, so much unexplored territory still remains. If I find a civilization that does not know the church, I can conquer them with total freedom. And even if they do know, I can just play dumb. By the time they complain to the church, I will act shocked and stop, but keep every single inch of conquered land. Unless they can actually defeat the church in battle, they do not get a say in the matter. I sent 10,000 guards across the mountain. Once they cleared the land, they built a proper fort with wooden houses. The nearest lizard tribe was 100 miles away, completely unaware of our presence. I was in no rush. Instead, I also mobilized 10,000 civilians. They volunteered because I promised them land ownership rights in the new territory. Knowing it was just one mountain away from Louisa, they quickly agreed. Meanwhile, the dock was already taking shape. Once we have proper ships traveling between both territories, will be a breeze. The poor griffins had to carry over 20,000 people over the mountain. I felt slightly guilty, but good food kept them docile. Even so, I decided to give them a break. 20,000 people were enough to test the waters. One sunny afternoon, my soldiers brought back intriguing news. My lord, we have captured a massive bird person. A bird person capable of flight. Trust me, guys, because this is the exact moment everything completely changes. This meant I had discovered a brand new continent with hidden races. They took me to see the creature immediately. She had a human body, but bird wings instead of arms and sharp talons. Her silhouette was female, dressed in ugly scraps of cloth. Come with me as we check out this wing-bound girl from a primitive civilization that cannot build a thing. Her wing was bleeding from an arrow wound, making her look incredibly pale. She huddled in her cage like an injured bird, staring at me with tired eyes. Her name was Timmy. Her strength and intelligence were only 30, but her overall rank was Class A. Her special talents had to be incredible. She had 2 skills: flight and nightmare transformation. That last one immediately caught my attention. I had to bring her to Louisa to observe her. My soldiers spotted her flying while cutting down trees in the forest. They thought she was a giant bird and shot her down for food, only to discover she was a beast woman. I ordered them to search for more of her kind, report any anomalies, and reinforce her cage immediately. The griffins transported her to my estate in Louisa. The whole trip she watched my beasts weakly opening her mouth as if trying to communicate. I listened very closely, but I could not understand a single thing she was trying to say. I called a priestess to heal her wounds, and when she saw Timmy, her eyes widened in shock. She had never seen anything like her, but she still cast her healing spell quickly. The wing healed, leaving a scar, but the feathers lost to the arrow did not regrow. That bare pink patch looked almost cute. I tried to pay her, but she refused. Bowing, she said my fiancé is her holy maiden, so serving me was a great honor. Pay close attention here because it looks like our main character does not know his own fiancé's true power. Dismissing the priestess, I called Ankuna to communicate with Timmy. Since she possesses the beast-taming skill, it might just work. I also brought along Reina the little dragon girl just to be safe. With her strength, I had no fear of an attack. Ankuna tried speaking to Timmy, but she only hissed, flapping her wings threateningly. Her taming skill failed because Timmy was no ordinary beast, so Reina suggested letting the elf Chalice give it a shot. She masters ancient languages, which sounded like a brilliant idea. I had forgotten my elf administrator Shao has that incredible talent alongside her political skills. When she arrived, she looked half asleep. It is no surprise since I basically dumped all the territory's paperwork on her. She stumbled into Reina's arms, mumbled a greeting, and bowed politely despite being completely exhausted. I felt so guilty. I bet you would have felt the same because paperwork is absolute torture and nobody wants to deal with it. Upon seeing Timmy Chalice snapped wide awake, a small lock of her hair stood up, twitching with sheer excitement. Is she from the Vastia tribe? I thought they were extinct. She approached the cage, speaking in an incomprehensible language. Timmy reacted immediately upon hearing her speak in Vastian. They chatted for a bit, and Shell revealed that Timmy had run away from home. She was shocked to see humans believing we were extinct. She demanded her freedom, warning us that her father is the chief of her tribe. He would send the entire tribe to find her over 10,000 elite warriors capable of turning into nightmare fighters. In that state, they feel no pain, and their strength spikes drastically. Ancient texts claim a group once slew a giant dragon, though Shell says that is unverified. I patted Shell's head to thank her for her excellent work. She smiled happily, said she was glad to help, and headed straight back to her massive mountain of paperwork. After she left, I stared at Timmy with worry. My soldiers had captured the chief's daughter by mistake. This complicated everything. Timmy did not look human at all. She had feathers on her face wings instead of arms and talons for feet. But her appearance did not bother me. If her tribe had 10,000 nightmare warriors, they were a major threat to my expansion. Releasing her was completely out of the question. She would expose our location and guide her entire tribe straight to us. On the other hand, keeping her captive would give me a powerful bargaining chip if a war broke out. Still, one thing puzzled me. If she could transform into a nightmare warrior, why did she not do it when captured? I ordered more bows and arrows sent to the mountain ridge. If the Vastians came for their princess, we had to be ready. Against an unarmored flying race, arrows would be devastating. In a couple of days, I would send scouts into the mountains to track down their hidden tribe's exact location. A month went by after capturing Timmy, and we heard nothing from the Vastia. That was actually great news. Meanwhile, I made sure every single guard on the mountain was equipped with a longbow and a full quiver. And that is how we braced for the worst, my friends. Do you think they will attack soon? Let us find out next time. Come along with me, because today we will see how 10,000 civilians build a new home at the mountain foot, even though clearing the land was incredibly brutal. Poisonous snakes and constant insect swarms kept attacking the workers relentlessly. I sent 2 priestesses to heal and purify for free. I wanted my people working without any worries. They rejected my gold. I had to force 100 coins on each, practically threatening to get angry just so they would keep it. I know I basically live under the heavy influence of my fiancé, but I want to look generous, not cheap. we placed Timmy's cage right near the griffins. Ankiana told me Timmy tried desperately to speak to them, but the griffins ignored him. They only wanted Ankiana, putting me on high alert. If the Vastia tribe can talk to griffins, they might actually be raising their own. That would change everything. Even without armor, griffins are utterly devastating. They are no one's ultimate elite force. To stop them, we needed magic. Luckily, thanks to Narancel, I already had over 100 novice mages and 10 mid-tier ones. With a solid mage core, heavy cavalry, and griffins, our military might would shoot straight to the next level. I visited Naranel and asked her to move to the new territory to protect my people. She agreed instantly. With her power and apprentices guarding the mountain, my territory finally had real magical defense. Pay attention here, because we are about to uncover some fascinating secrets. There are 4 main deities in this world: the goddess of light, the god of magic, the battle aura god, and the god of the undead. The first 2 are still active. The priestesses serve the light, and all magic works through divine blessings. However, both the battle aura god and the god of the dead vanished a very long time ago. Legends say they fought each other and simply vanished. In the past, warriors channeled aura to strengthen their weapons. A warrior with a strong aura could make a standard sword far more lethal than a magical one. But aura went extinct over 1,000 years ago. The title of Sword Saint still exists, but nobody actually deserves it anymore. Ancient genuine sword saints were so unbelievably powerful that even the greatest archmages would run away in terror. Some believe the massive mountain ranges dividing the continents are directly connected to those 2 fallen gods. That mysterious clash changed the entire world just as spring was giving way to summer. This new territory was cooler than Louisa, which my soldiers deeply appreciated. The settlement was finally taking shape. We didn't have protective walls yet, but we had plenty of watchtowers. After we captured Timmy, the bird people stopped appearing and the guard relaxed. Narancel was managing everything in that area. Life was tough, but free land made it worth it. Until one night, when the towers suddenly lit their warning fires. Watch closely with me as a horde of lizardmen armed with torches emerged from the shadows right at us. They wore leather armor, carried curved swords, and stood over 2.5 meters tall, completely towering over my soldiers. The battle raged for hours, ending with the lizardmen fleeing in absolute terror. Sure, they were giant and strong, but my guards were veterans, used to fighting heavily armed beastmen. Our military technology was vastly superior. After just a few clashes, my soldiers' enchanted swords shattered the enemy weapons. Even their mages couldn't harm us. Our tempered steel shields blocked every single spell. The next morning, Narancel gave me the report: over 1,000 enemies dead and 500 taken prisoner. On our side, we only lost a few guards caught without armor, plus 12 wounded, whom the priestesses healed immediately. I had massive plans for these captives. I wanted to establish an exclusive settlement for the lizardmen. A good lord must embrace diversity. They weren't the smartest creatures, but they sure knew how to fight. I had already tamed 200 lizard slaves before, so I definitely had experience. I bought slave collars from the merchant guild in Louisa for the prisoners. At the slightest hostile movement, the collar would explode instantly. When we pulled them from the cages, a few idiots lunged straight at me, screaming wildly. They didn't even take 2 steps before the collars tore open their throats, dropping them dead and instantly silencing the rest. I smiled at them with complete calm, looking even more terrifying. I tried speaking in the common tongue, but they just stared in confusion. Perfect this confirmed, these lands were totally unexplored. I brought Chalice along for this exact reason. The poor girl was terrified of the blood and clung to my leg, hiding her face. I patted her head. And trust me, what she told them will change our destiny forever. Alright, get ready, because you and I are about to watch a crowd beg for mercy, while the rest shout in defiance. I just looked at my guards. They got the message, instantly stepping forward to execute the loudmouths on the spot. Just like that, all resistance vanished. Do not even think about rebelling. I warned them through Shell that if they did not cooperate, I would happily send them to the great goddess of light. Next, I picked out 4 of the most timid-looking ones and ordered them tied up separately. I needed clear answers. Something forced these lizardmen to march 50 kilometers just to attack us, and I was going to find out what. The questioning went fast. They came from over 10 different tribes, so I interrogated them individually until 4 prisoners finally told the exact same story. I had Shell write down every detail. Turns out they discovered us a month ago. The strongest lizardmen tribe blew the war horn, rallying more than 10 factions together just to launch this massive assault. Even their smallest tribe had over 10,000 members, while the mighty Thorn tribe boasted 50,000. That matched my estimates. I also gathered some useful intel on the Vastia. They live in mountain caves and build their nests high up in the canopy of giant trees. That explained why I could not spot them from the air on my griffin. I was totally exposed while they hid under the dense foliage. The Vastia actually breed griffins and are constantly clashing with the lizardmen. Their nightmare warriors are stronger individually, but the lizardmen have the numbers and endurance to hold them off. There are also underground goblins and gnomes who occasionally venture to the surface to hunt the rich local wildlife. Knowing all this, I felt confident. The weapons and gear of my guards completely outclassed these primitive natives. Now pay attention here, because even at a physical disadvantage, we would crush them. If those lizards attack again, they lose. As for launching an assault, I decided to wait. After winter, I would recruit more guards and make those lizard tribes pay. Meanwhile, back at the Magic Academy, things were getting complicated between Zaluka and Princess Awire. She heard rumors that Zaluka and Yoluna were becoming very close. Yoluna was my fiancé and Awire's rival. If Zaluka got that close to her, would she still support the princess when it mattered? She observed her carefully, asking her directly about her relationship with Yoluna. Zaluka innocently replied that Yoluna was like a sweet younger sister. Then Awire asked what she thought of their own friendship. Zaluka completely misunderstood the situation. She figured Awire was just insecure, fearing she would be replaced as her best friend. She leaned in and warmly reassured her that nothing would ever change between them. Hearing this, Awire finally relaxed a bit. She assumed Yoluna was only pursuing Zaluka because of her incredible talent, just like she had done initially. Though she approached her for political reasons, her desire for a real friendship was genuine. As a princess, everyone usually bowed and flattered her. Nobody was genuine, but we're about to see Zaluka change that. She even caught herself thinking that if one of them had been born a man, he would have courted her passionately. Their children would have unmatched magical talent. King Ziluk the 13th was having a rough time. He forced his people to work over 12 hours a day clearing land and farming. He was desperate to harvest enough wheat before autumn, since they nearly starved last winter, and he could not let that happen again. His own subjects hated him for it, but he had an entire army at his disposal to keep them in line. Honestly, their situation was no better than living under the yoke of beasts. Duke Simon also received some terrible news of his own. Prince Michelle's betrayal was now public knowledge. The merchants of Raima and Yaid had spread the word absolutely everywhere. Everyone knew the third prince opened the city gates to the beasts, allowing them to stab his own army in the back. The king's eldest son was still missing, dead or alive. Thinking about that, Simon felt a wave of relief about his own situation. At least his daughter was safe with me, potentially becoming my concubine in the near future. My strong connections with the church guaranteed she would survive this war. The Simon bloodline was finally secure. Back in my own territory, the shipyard was almost finished. Joanne and Galen were absolute construction geniuses. With my unlimited support and their incredible talent, they completed it before summer ended. Now they could start building real ships. I bought them shipbuilding books from the Merchant Guild. With any luck, we would have a seaworthy vessel ready by next spring. I wished I could dig a tunnel right through the mountain to connect my two territories. But without steam engines, it was pure fantasy. Having ships on both sides of the mountain would just have to be enough for now. Ankro reported that we recruited another 20,000 guards this summer. Weapons were scarce, so I ordered him to use the old gear we replaced. He also handpicked 10 squad leaders, selecting the absolute strongest fighters from within our ranks, all with levels between 60 and 70. I trust his judgment, and honestly, we've watched Ankro grow into an absolute beast. Let's dive into this wild story. When I first met him, his combat stat barely cracked 70. Now it was 90 with new sword and shield skills. His loyalty sat at a perfect 100. Ever since Shin passed away, I relied on him more and more, and he always rose to the challenge. Next, I checked my own stats. All my harsh training was finally paying off. My combat level hit 40, meaning I could actually hold my own against normal soldiers. Rhea taught me how to fight, though some of her moves required that insane dragon strength I simply did not have. Still, she was incredibly patient, and I learned a lot. My strategy rating somehow climbed to 85, probably just due to age and experience. On that scorching summer day, I stared up at the blue sky and felt a sudden heavy ache. I really missed you, Luna. I had grown so used to having that sweet girl watching over me. Without her around every single day felt just a little too long. Autumn arrived warmer than usual. Nia managed to make another breakthrough. She had successfully brewed an agility potion. The tiny elf beamed with joy, her pointed ears twitching in excitement, as she held up the glowing blue bottle. She told me there were absolutely no side effects on the test mice after a whole week. I was completely stunned by this. The strength potion still had awful side effects even after upgrades. I only kept it for absolute emergencies, but this new one had zero issues. I needed real proof. I selected 4 volunteers, 2 regular civilians, and 2 lizardmen slaves, all of them starting with 80 loyalty. The lizardmen started with 65 combat and instantly jumped up to 70 after drinking it. The humans went from 25 to 35. It seemed the potion worked better on weaker bodies. Days later, I rechecked their stats. The combat boost had worn off as expected. Side effects were minimal, just some mild weakness in the 2 humans. Totally acceptable. Now watch closely, because this is where everything changes. Their loyalty jumped to 90. All 4 of them. It was definitely 80 before. I had done nothing special for these people over the past few days. The only variable that changed was the potion. A strange idea formed in my mind. Timmy had been kept in a cage for months. The Bird King girl who loved flying free was now stuck staring at a sky she could never reach. She had run away from home to escape her duties as future tribal chief. She had a habit of disappearing. Last time she vanished for 6 months, and her dad even held a funeral. No one would search for her anytime soon. Her days were endlessly boring. The griffins just growled at her. Ankuna fed her 3 times a day. That was it. Today I brought Chalice to translate and Reina for muscle. Through Chalice, I told Timmy that I wanted peace between our people, offering her a recovery potion as a gesture of goodwill. She screamed back that she would never accept my apology and her tribe would never submit. She called it poison. I was not angry. I just turned to Reina. Force feed her. Rhea opened the cage door with one hand. Timmy felt the crushing aura of a dragon-blooded warrior locking onto her. Reina's dangerous slit pupil eyes radiated pure terror. Timmy recognized it instantly. This girl carried pure white dragon blood in her veins. All resistance instantly drained from her body. Reina poured the liquid down her throat. It was warm and did not taste bad, but tears of pure humiliation rolled down Timmy's face. She shut her eyes in utter despair. Then Reina simply locked the cage back up. Nothing else happened. I smiled and nodded. If this potion worked on Timmy like the others, she would become my ultimate weapon. I know what you are thinking. A loyalty-boosting potion is completely unheard of. 2 days after her dose, I checked her stats. Her loyalty had jumped from 0 to 10. It actually worked. My heart raced as I decided to push forward. Every 2 days, Rhea returned to give Timmy another dose. By the 9th visit, she did not even resist anymore. She opened her mouth before Reina could even unlock the door. Rhea still went through the whole threatening routine anyway, leaving poor Timmy on the verge of tears. After half a month, Timmy's loyalty hit 90. I only had 1 bottle left, so I decided to start asking questions. Putting on my friendliest face, I asked her through Chalice if she really was the chief's daughter. She answered without hesitation. Yes, she was his only daughter and the future heir. Something had clearly changed inside her. She could not even feel her own hatred fading away. I told her I was sorry for how my soldiers treated her and promised to free her in 2 days. I said I wanted to build friendship between our peoples and that I would never enslave the birdkin. They would have the same rights as my subjects. Of course, my words were totally contradictory. Friendship and subjects do not exactly go hand in hand. But Timmy did not notice. She just stared with wide eyes, asking if I was truly releasing her. Once that final potion pushed her loyalty to 100, I kept my promise and set her free. She could barely believe it. I even offered to have a griffin fly her home, but she politely declined, not wanting to trouble me. She called me Lord Linway, thanking me sincerely. As she flew away, you and I both know she just became my perfect unwitting sleeper agent. If I ever decided to conquer the birdkin, she would be the puppet leader everyone trusted. Stick with me to find out why Nia couldn't recreate that loyalty. Only her first batch actually worked. The subsequent batches were just ordinary potions. No matter how much I pushed her, she just couldn't figure out what she did differently that first time. I had to let it go for now. Besides, I had something far better to look forward to. Autumn was nearly over, and Yoluna finally finished her church duties, arriving early at Louisa Linway. In her white holy robes with skin like pale jade, she looked like an angel. I embraced her, and she melted in my arms. Her warmth felt like home. She softly mentioned our failure to conceive an heir last winter, but promised she would keep trying this year. Then she casually pointed toward a small chest inside the church carriage. It took 4 of my strongest guards to carry it down. Inside, a silver block of metal gleamed under the sun. Mithril, a chunk the size of a human head. It is incredibly rare and blends flawlessly with magic. Just a speck forged into a weapon makes it devastating. A piece this size was worth tens of millions of gold coins, if you could even find a seller. Now watch closely for the sweet question Yuna asked me next. Did I like it? I nodded, stunned. Had she raided the church vault just for me? She pouted. So do you like Mithril more than me? Am I not pretty enough? I shook my head frantically. You could offer me the entire continent, and it still wouldn't match my fiancé. My wealthy bride was unreal. From what Chalice told me and my own observations, the Vastia are no ordinary beastmen. They are winged people obsessed with blood purity. Only the purest bloodlines can become their strongest, most nightmarish warriors. Timmy's own tribe of Thorns is the strongest, boasting 50,000 members. The other Vastia tribes combined add another 100,000. That is their whole population, with each tribe ruling itself. For Timmy, being the young chief meant she had to marry her own younger brother Tyr to produce pure-blooded heirs. That was what she fled from when my soldiers shot her down. After I freed her, she flew back home. She had read ancient books in her tribe's forgotten library, texts describing the vast world beyond their mountains and the Rima River. They convinced her that hiding behind unexplored natural barriers was a mistake. She wanted to prove to everyone that the outside world was not as terrifying as they believed. Meeting me and my people only reinforced that dream. For reasons she couldn't explain, she trusted me completely. She believed in my promise of friendship. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. The potion worked like a charm. Upon her return, her brother Tyr instantly noticed her wing was injured. She lied, claiming it was an accident. Tyr was only 15, but he was perceptive and knew she was lying. He promised to try to convince their father to cancel the arranged marriage, fearing she might do something reckless. But this time, Timmy shocked him by declaring she wanted to lead and bring the Vastia out of isolation. Tyr fell silent, but then promised to support whatever decision she made. Even though becoming chief meant she would still have to marry him. Her father T was utterly stunned by her announcement. He spoiled her because she resembled his late wife, and never expected her to actually take on such a heavy duty. But seeing her serious gaze, he smiled with genuine pride, telling her she had always been his greatest joy. Timmy felt a pang of guilt seeing her father's happy face. She wasn't doing this for tradition, but to change everything. Even so, she knew that if the tribe of Thorns remained hidden away, they would eventually face total extinction. My pawn was moving exactly where I wanted. As autumn rolled in, the lizard men grew increasingly bold. They kept launching surprise raids, but they always ended up utterly defeated. After interrogating several prisoners, I confirmed they had no ties to the Southern Beastmen Empire. That was a massive relief. I already had over 2,000 captives, meaning my labor demands were rising. I dispatched another 20,000 guards over the mountains on griffons. My territory now held over 300,000 people, with refugees pouring in. Once winter ended, I would launch a full-scale campaign against those lizardmen tribes. One quiet afternoon, I sat for tea and found my cup empty. Before I could call Elu, Yoluna was there pouring. She always insisted on serving me whenever she visited. Holding her soft hand, I realized how incredibly lucky I was. Without her, Louisa would never have survived. The beastmen war, let alone prospered. Is something wrong? She asked sweetly. Nothing, just glad to have met her. 2 years have passed, and I know you will love this couple too. Let's see how perfectly she understood me, always noticing how my eyes constantly searched for her. She never said a word, just smiling to herself. She also noticed I never touched another woman. Not Elu, not Reina, nobody. It seemed I had zero interest in the concubines, which definitely made her incredibly happy. Plus, she saw my training gave me way too much energy lately. Not that she minded. The mithril she brought went straight to Biglin, the dwarf smith. He almost froze on the spot. He had never seen so much of that legendary metal in his entire life. He wanted to forge a single legendary weapon, but I ordered him to mix it with refined steel for elite soldier gear. Working non-stop, he crafted 1,000 complete sets of armor, along with shields and longswords. This silver-white gear was indestructible. Their old steel weapons could not even scratch the new armor. The mithril also made the swords lighter and easier to wield. But then Biglin totally surprised me. He secretly forged a personal sword for me with 30% mithril and 70% steel. It was beautiful. A snow-white blade, elegant hilt, embedded blue gem, and pure white sheath. It felt cold and perfectly balanced in my hand. With my combat level at 40, it felt like an extra limb. "Great work," I said, making the dwarf sigh in relief. He feared I would be angry for using the precious mithril without permission, but I called Elulu to reward him with 2 gold coins. He immediately fell to his knees, thanking me for my immense generosity and praising his great master. Pay attention here because things in the church were getting intense. Old Archbishop Thibault, Yoluna's great-uncle, who practically raised her, noticed her visits. He had already seen her blue ring, a clear sign of love. He felt like his most precious treasure had been stolen. He had heard of me capturing Raima's royalty and winning the gladiator tournament. Decent enough, he figured, even though he knew very well that I had not fought in the arena myself. He could not understand how his sweet girl met me. Later, he ordered the bishops to find mithril for a holy collar for Raima's king. The bishops nervously stammered. After nearly exploding and screaming at them, Thibault finally got them to admit that Yoluna had taken the mithril for Louisa. The old man's terrifying aura vanished instantly. He stood there stunned before bursting into laughter at how rebellious she was. They were only engaged and she was already emptying the temple treasury, mithril worth over 10 million gold coins. Just hand it over. Once he calmed down, he thought at least it was for someone she loved. He could accept that. Then, he asked about selling griffins to King Yade for 100,000 coins, which the Holy Maiden sent to Lewis last year. Chebo clenched his fist. Meanwhile, I was having a very peaceful morning. Yoluna was still sleeping beautifully. You probably know what comes next. I went to train, and when I returned, my panicked butler immediately approached me. The church bishops had arrived. I cleaned up, changed my clothes, and entered the castle. An old man in bishop robes sat there, escorted by 2 others, standing. His stats were absolutely incredible. A strategy stat of 367 SS, rank holy light talent and magical sensitivity. Great healing and forbidden magic. Almost as strong as Bitey. He showed 0 affection or loyalty, which I fully expected. I knew I married into a power dynasty, but seeing this great-uncle's raw strength in person made me smile. I greeted them politely. The standing bishops nodded awkwardly, but the sitting old man did not even try to hide his disgust. I silently ordered Elulu to wake Yoluna. "This count," the old man said coldly. I had no idea what I did wrong, but powerful people have bad tempers. I let it go, while he scanned me for mana. Finding absolutely nothing, he grew angrier. Without magic, I could never learn any spells. And since children inherit from both parents, despite Yoluna's talent, my lack of magic meant our descendants would be powerless. That made him dislike me even more. Jebo kept staring at me with a rapidly growing irritation. To him, I was just a good-looking kid who had absolutely nothing special going for him. A pretty face cannot rule. "What is your father's name?" he asked, wanting to dig into my origins. I named my father Baron Ryan, then played my trump card. My grandfather Baron Edward, a great warrior of the kingdom. Jebo's face shifted, recognizing the name. Turns out he and my grandfather fought over the same woman years ago. In the end, neither of them won her heart, but they were very close friends for a long time. When my grandfather died from old wounds, Thibault felt deep sadness. He would have helped him, but both were far too proud. And just look at fate, finally bringing our families together through Yoluna and me. Come along with me for this incredible story. Learning about my connection to Edward made him so furious, he looked ready to explode, terrifying his bishops. I was frantically looking for an escape when Yoluna's voice echoed from the doorway. "Grandfather Jebo, what brings you here?" The old man's furious expression vanished in an instant. He couldn't believe his eyes. "If I didn't show up, you'd empty the entire church treasury." Yoluna grabbed his arm with her most innocent face. "But grandfather..." Didn't you say everything in the church belongs to me? Lisco is my home too. I'm just moving things around. The bishops went pale and I froze. That was just adding fuel to the fire, but to my surprise, Jebo only sighed. I have been a bad grandfather. I should have paid you more attention. Yuna's words completely melted him. She told him the territory was thriving because of me, and took him for a walk, winking to reassure me. It was actually the first time I had met a relative in either of my two lives. Thank goodness my fiancé handled it, because I could never have managed that old grand mage on my own. While I served tea to the relieved bishops, Yoluna showed Jebo around the estate. She even bought him grilled chicken skewers from the street vendors. Even he had to admit the place was impressive. So many small merchants meant serious wealth, something even many duchies lacked. The people looked healthy and happy, smiling genuinely. That actually scored me some major points with him. Now pay attention here, because Yoluna decided to take him straight to the military camp where Ankro was training the guards. Jebo saw thousands of soldiers in shining armor, well-equipped and highly trained, estimating about 10,000. Maintaining an army like that required serious skill. Grudgingly, the old man admitted that I was far smarter than my grandfather. At least I wasn't some brainless fool who would mistreat Yoluna. He decided I barely passed his test, so she led him to the city walls. Even this old grand mage who had seen it all froze in utter shock. Beyond the walls lay a massive second city he never expected. He stood there completely unable to believe his eyes. Behind the inner walls was another settlement, stretching all the way to the Rima River, protected by its own larger walls. There were thousands of new wooden houses buzzing with life. He estimated at least 100,000 people lived there. Were refugees that I had taken in. He was highly suspicious since hosting so many people required massive resources. He eyed Yoluna, suspecting she was secretly funding me, and calmly asked where Linwei was getting all this money. Yuna smiled proudly, explaining that the incredibly famous cream, selling all over Nurans, was actually his invention. He exports it to Yade and Rima for 100 gold coins per jar. Her eyes sparkled, talking about me, making Jebo nod slowly. He'd heard of the business, but had no idea it was mine. Looking at it this way, maybe giving me the griffins was worth it. Thank goodness he didn't discover the wheat Yoluna had been sending me, or I bet he would have fainted from shock. He visited my estate and saw the griffins were healthy and well-fed. He sighed in resignation, then headed to the blacksmith's workshop. Big and his team were working hard with rows of finished swords and armor gleaming on the shelves. Jebo stared at the silver gleam of the weapons, recognizing that very familiar color, and looked straight at Yoluna. She immediately looked away to avoid his gaze. He sighed heavily, seeing his precious mithril being used on my soldiers. He stayed for 2 days, watching me quite coldly, but I remained completely respectful and polite the entire time. That seemed to calm his urge to act like the strict grandfather. He saw that Yoluna was truly happy here, and that I cared for her. Since her parents died young and she carried the heavy burden of being the saintess alone, he feared she would never find a partner. Well, we both know he worried for nothing. Before leaving, he called me aside. "Treat my Yoluna well, or you will face the wrath of a grand mage," he warned. I smiled and assured him I would grandfather Jebo. "Even if I end up on the streets, she will eat first." He rolled his eyes, saying that if I lost everything, she would just go back to the church. "Do you really think she needs to beg by your side?" Right after that, he handed me a mysterious necklace. It was light blue with a masculine design and a polished dragon tooth. It felt warm, as if some powerful force was sleeping inside. "Take good care of it. Perhaps one day you might suddenly use magic." Yoluna looked utterly shocked. This necklace was blessed by the goddess of light. Someone in the church once wore it and awakened their sensitivity to magical power. Many had begged Jebo for it, and he refused them all. He had always told Yoluna he was saving it for her true love. She carefully placed it around my neck. The old man looked at his granddaughter one last time before boarding his carriage, smiling warmly. He was probably already dreaming of having great-grandchildren. After his departure, I held Yoluna close, feeling incredibly lucky. "So tell me, do you think our love can survive what comes next?" Winter finally hit Luisisa. Come along with me as we watch Yoluna gaze sweetly at the kids playing in the snow. Caressing her flat belly, she sighed gently. With no baby on the way, she did not seem to mind it too much. Being alone with me was not bad. The griffins had already fully matured by now. The smallest was already the size of an elephant. Plus, they laid 13 eggs this winter, so I moved them to a heated cabin to stay warm. In the wild, their birth rate is terrible. With luck, only 5 of the 13 will hatch. Even so many hatchlings die young. That is why they are so rare, despite being long-lived and incredibly powerful. The adult griffins already wore Yoluna's armor. It was made of rare metal plated with mithril just as tough as my own best gear. They hated it at first, but Ancuna calmed them. Once they get used to the weight, their battle survival rate will skyrocket. I have to admit those armored griffins looked way more imposing. Even in the dead of winter, I was already planning the spring offensive against the lizardmen. They kept raiding my territory, but pay close attention here because I chose to wait for spring to teach them a lesson. To the world, I was just an innocent settler defending myself. I equipped Ankro's 1,000-man squad with the mithril armor Big forged. Every single one of them had a combat level of at least 50. Armed with huge shields, mithril swords, and silver armor, these expert riders on northern war horses would become the most lethal heavy cavalry imaginable. Compared to my early days, this current gap in power was just massive. If I fought the Beastmen army again, I would crush them with barely any casualties. I still remembered getting slashed by that dogman. Next time I would kill him myself. When spring arrived, my expeditionary force set off. 15,000 elite guards marched straight into Lizardman territory. Leaving 5,000 behind to guard the settlement, I locked the Lizardman prisoners in underwater dungeons. We targeted the 3 largest tribes, each 50,000 strong. They had us outnumbered, but our power was on another level. Our mithril-clad vanguard led the charge, striking them with lightning speed. Many lizardmen were just enjoying the spring thaw when my soldiers slaughtered them. Ankro was charging right at the front. The lizards swung curved swords and spears at him, but their weapons just bounced off his mithril shield, without leaving a scratch. His mithril blade sliced through flesh and armor like hot butter. Those lizardmen were cut in half before they even realized what hit them. A lizard mage blasted Ankro with mid-tier magic, and you and I both know what is coming. His armor stayed completely scratch-free. The mage kept casting in pure disbelief. Ankro, completely unfazed, quietly pulled an arrow from his quiver and pierced his chest. The battle raged all day. My guards lost 100 men, but they wiped out nearly 10,000 lizard men. We captured over 30,000, including females and young. An entire tribe of 50,000 wiped out in less than a day. Our mithril-armored elite suffered 0 casualties. The entire jungle reeked of blood. Birds fled screaming into the sky, signaling the massacre. I locked up the 30,000 captives and armed my civilians with old gear to help guard them. Each patrol had 2 guards and 3 civilians, plenty of strength to control unarmed captives. My men got no rest. Before dawn, they marched toward the second tribe, crossing a small mountain range. The first raid was so sudden, and since the tribes hated each other, nobody warned the rest. We crushed the second tribe just as easily, capturing 20,000 more while losing only 12 guards. This continent was home to over 300,000 lizardmen spread across more than 100 tribes. I wiped out the 2 biggest, around 80,000 total, but many fled and warned the others. Nearby tribes ran before we even arrived. After 2 days of brutal fighting in the mountains, my men were completely exhausted. The lizards moved much better through the rugged terrain than my armored soldiers, making horses completely useless up there. Ankro brought them back to base. Now I had more prisoners than actual citizens. What a massive headache. I shipped in the lizard slaves I bought at the start and brought in Shal to translate. Captives filled every single cage and empty corner. We tied up the strong young males with ropes, leaving the elders and children free but separated. They stared at me with terror and hostility. Lacking slave collars for 50,000 prisoners, I had to prioritize. I ordered Ankro to collar only the strong young males and then untie their ropes. As they were being collared, the lizardmen screamed non-stop insults. Shal's face twisted in pure disgust. Apparently, they said horrible things. I didn't care. Stick around with me to see if I can convince them I mean no harm. Let's dive right into this. The crowd explodes in furious screams, but I just smile and signal Ankro to execute them. Blood splatters everywhere, silencing the screaming instantly. I calmly mention that those guys clearly did not value our friendship. So I send them to the great goddess of light. She is way more merciful than me. They have 2 choices left. Submit or die, though they are welcome to fake their loyalty while waiting for the perfect chance to rebel. In fact, I recommend that option because open defiance means they will never see sunrise. After Shell translates, the lizardmen go dead silent. My guards' swords are still dripping with blood. As we put collars on the youth, I order their ropes cut immediately. Dozens try to steal weapons. Their collars detonate, slicing their necks wide open as their lifeless bodies collapse. After that, nobody dares to even blink. Watching the surviving warriors line up, I nod with deep satisfaction. Perfect. I am not a heartless ruler. Serve me with absolute loyalty and your lives will not change at all. You can keep living on your lands and raising your families. I only demand your oath. Just then, an elder steps forward. My guards surround him, but I tell them to stand down. He is old with gray scales and cloudy eyes, but highly respected. He speaks slowly, and Chalice translates his words. He says, "Great Lord of humans, if you promise not to slaughter my people, the Misha tribe swears pure loyalty." I smile. Sure, I am a pioneer, not a butcher. Serve me well and you will be fine. Once back, I will need to buy tons of slave collars until their absolute loyalty is high enough. Those magical collars will be the solid foundation of our beautiful friendship. Now pay close attention here, because while my army rests after crushing those tribes, the survivors do something unexpected, sending a messenger to the Vastia. Chief Tiwa of the Thorn tribe receives this messenger with absolute shock. These two races have always been at war. Their only truce happened when goblins invaded from the underground. Tiwa's first thought is exactly that, another goblin attack. But the messenger confesses the brutal, honest truth. A heavily armed human army showed up and wiped out the two largest lizardmen tribes overnight. Out of 70 to 80,000 lizardmen, tens of thousands are dead. The rest have vanished and the messenger couldn't even find any human corpses on the battlefield. He begs the Vastia for help, warning that without unity, they face extinction. After dismissing him, Tiwa asks Timmy for her opinion. She has matured a lot since returning, and he is grooming her to lead. Timmy plays her part flawlessly. She suggests spying on the humans first instead of blindly trusting those lizard men. What if the lizards are lying? Maybe it is a trap to drag the Vastia into a devastating war. Their old rivalry keeps getting worse. I know exactly what you are thinking. She is incredibly sharp. She analyzes everything calmly, leaving Tiwa highly impressed. But then comes the hardest question. What if these human warriors are actually unbeatable? Timmy wears a fierce expression. We will fight to the death. We must never abandon Vastia honor. But Tiwa gently shakes his head. He reminds her that their ancestors lived across the mountains and the great river, but ended up exiled after losing to humans and beastmen. Survival is far more important than pride. If necessary, he will personally bear the crushing weight of defeat. Timmy can rise to chief and submit to the humans. At least surrendering guarantees they stay alive. Staying alive, he tells her, is the only way to break free one day. Timmy fakes outrage, claiming she would never surrender their people's honor. But on the inside, of course, she is already on my side. Her acting is so convincing that if I saw it, I would hand her an Academy Award. She offers to spy on the humans herself, and Tiwa agrees. My chess piece is moving exactly as planned. Timmy heads out to scout with a few Vastia warriors playing her role flawlessly. She acts highly cautious, warning them to keep a safe distance from the lizardmen camps. Soon they confirm the truth for themselves. The two largest lizardmen tribes are completely destroyed. Rotting corpses cover the ground and the stench is unbearable. The warriors' faces grow pale. This is clearly not a trap. Goblins could never do this so fast. Timmy sends one warrior back to report to her father while guiding the other two toward my new domain. They see exactly what I want them to see, my gods wearing full armor shining under the sun. Thousands of captured lizardmen held in the open and guard towers packed with alert soldiers. And then they see what truly terrifies them, 8 armored adult griffins. Those Vastia warriors cannot believe their eyes. Iron is an unreachable luxury for them, but here they face a fully armored army. Those griffins are beyond anything they could imagine. My sentinels spot them flying. I order my men to fire arrows, but to intentionally miss. Arrows whisk past the Vastia to terrify them. They flee in panic, and believe me, you and I know this is just the beginning. Let's dive into this master plan together. Atop those towers stood my best sharpshooters, capable of hitting targets blindfolded. Watching from the shadows, I confirmed Timmy was there. I smiled. She was my most valuable piece on this chessboard. I would never let them hurt her. This entire show was calculated. Crushing the lizardmen wasn't just about claiming territory. It was a direct warning to the Vastia. They needed to learn resistance was futile, even if their flight made them annoying opponents. I couldn't rely on brute force alone. I needed their surrender. Back in the Thorn tribe, Timmy collapsed, weeping in her father's arms. "Father, we can't win." The warriors confirmed everything. Soldiers, clad in full armor, thousands of archers, and armored griffins. The humans used griffins to cross the mountain, implying they had far more than the 8 visible ones. Tiwa's heart sank. He understood immediately. If those humans transported so many elite soldiers over mountains, a few griffins weren't their entire arsenal. But he couldn't show fear. His daughter and his warriors were already panicking. If the chief broke, the entire tribe would fall. Now pay attention here. Timmy's performance was absolutely flawless. She showed her father exactly what I wanted. She pushed him to the conclusion I needed, never suspecting she was working for me. After calming Timmy down, Chief Tiwa sat alone for a long time. He decided to meet the human leader in person. At the very least, he had to secure his people's safety. Losing freedom was 1,000 times better than losing their lives. He would bear the guilt alone. He didn't even bother trying to unite the other Vastia tribes. Even during the Goblin Wars, they were too selfish to cooperate. Against humans, they would surely betray each other for a better deal. His young son Tyr stopped him at the door. The boy didn't know details, but he sensed the gravity of the situation. "Father, I'll take care of my sisters," he whispered. Tiwa smiled, patted his hair, and soared high into the sky. I had spent days waiting in the new territory, anticipating this exact moment. Timmy told me her father would sacrifice himself for the tribe, so he'd come in person. Armed and armored, I waited on the tower at sunset. Just when I thought no one would show up, an eagle-eyed sentinel spotted a tiny speck in the sky. "My lord, a birdman is approaching." "Perfect. No one fire, let him get closer." I greeted him from the tower. Tiwa approached cautiously, keeping his distance and scanning for any signs of an ambush. Seeing the bows lowered, he approached slowly, taking it all in. Tens of thousands of armored guards, enslaved lizard men, working in collars and armored griffins. Now he fully understood the absolute terror that gripped his daughter and his warriors. He landed without resistance, and Ankro escorted him. Rhea stood by me in her maid outfit while Little Shell held my hand to translate. "Hello, respected Vastia Lord." I smiled. Can you even imagine the insane tension between us? Tiwa frowned, noticing the language barrier, but Shell translated everything perfectly into Vastian, leaving him completely stunned. We had a translator ready for him. "I am Tiwa, chief of the Thorn tribe," he replied, just as I expected. "Welcome, chief. What brings you here?" He stared at Reyna, utterly confused, to see a dragon girl dressed as a maid. Then he made his proposal. "I come with goodwill from my tribe. I hope we can build an equal friendship between our peoples." Equal friendship. He was trying to negotiate the best deal possible. I gave a warm smile. "Of course, Louisa will always be your friend." My swift agreement completely threw him off since he expected hard conditions. Instead, I simply accepted. He was already doubting everything. Was I truly peaceful, or did I just want the Vastia quiet, while I wiped out the lizardmen first? It was beautiful having every piece exactly where I wanted. Tiwa came to me out of pure desperation. There was no need to demand his submission directly. He came offering friendship, and I graciously accepted. That was far more powerful than making heavy demands. Him coming to me was entirely different from me chasing him down. The awkward silence lasted for just 2 seconds. I had ordered Narincel and his mages to practice combat spells nearby, loud, flashy, and utterly impossible to ignore. Tiwa watched over 100 mages obliterate the terrain and gulped. The largest lizardman tribe barely had 10 weak magic users. I had more than 100, led by a high-level mage casting spells these natives had never even dreamed of. The Vastia feared magic more than anything. It was etched into their bones after years of battling against lizardman mages. Now Tiwa was staring at Archer's Griffin's elite forces and a magic army assembled. Finally, he broke completely. "Respected human lord, if I offer my tribe's submission, will you guarantee our safety?" This was exactly what I wanted. Their loyalty isn't guaranteed, but that's what collars are for. "Of course," I smiled kindly. "I'm no monster. Trust me, you and I are just getting started. Come along with me to see if joining Louisa gives all of Vastia equal rights. I'm a pioneer, not an executioner." Tiwa had one condition. "If you swear an oath to the goddess of light, the entire Thorn tribe will serve you." He knew the goddess watches over oaths. A divine vow is not easily broken. If Yoluna had been here, she would have stopped me. I swear this before the great goddess of light. The Thorn tribe will have the same rights as Louisa, provided they do not betray me. Suddenly, something watched me as I spoke. A fleeting presence that vanished instantly. He smiled and bowed, saying it was a pleasure to serve me. After he left, I felt satisfied. The Vastia were the real prize, a rare flying race. The lizard men were merely a matter of time and numbers. I ordered Tiwa to remain there and extend my friendly attitude toward the other Vastia tribes. I even armed some collared lizardmen to assist my guards with our ongoing expansion. Conquering this continent would take another year or two, but I was in no rush. I returned to Louisa because Wuri had returned. He sold all the cream-bought alchemy materials, rare ores, and 2,000 war horses. After expenses, he made 500,000 gold coins. Combined with the previous 3,000, we now had over 5,000 horses. I rewarded him and told him his wife was in labor. The former refugee turned merchant captain was going to be a father. He rushed off wearing a massive smile. Then Yoluna's jealous voice whispered in my ear, asking when I would finally become a father too. I gently tapped her forehead, telling her there was no rush until we wed. Then I asked something that troubled me. If someone swears an oath before the goddess of light, does she truly watch? Can that vow be broken? Now pay attention here because Yoluna's eyes snapped open in absolute panic as she demanded to know what I swore to the goddess. Clearly this was no game. I quietly confessed the details of my oath to Yoluna. She frowned with deep seriousness, warning me that divine vows are very real. The gods watch closely and punish traitors. She warned me never to swear lightly before the gods again, though she calmed down once she heard what I promised. Giving rights to the Thorn tribe was easy. Seeing her worry, I squeezed her hand and told her I would make another oath. Before she could get angry, I added that I swore before the goddess of light to love her forever, my dear Luna. This time, there was no divine presence. She merely complained that I was trying to please her. Then she swore before the goddess to only love Lin Wei. Her words struck me with a painful pang of guilt. I know what you're thinking. And yeah, there's a massive difference between loving always versus loving only one person. Heavy, right? I tried to ignore it. That night sleep wouldn't come. Jebo's collar was burning hot. Even inside the drawer, I felt its heat on my skin. It started warming up right after my oath to the goddess. Moonlight streamed through the window, while Yoluna slept peacefully by my side. I pulled out the necklace to examine it. The smooth round dragon bone tooth was radiating an increasingly intense heat. Suddenly, I felt it. A thunderclap echoed in my mind, sending a sharp tingle through my entire body. Strange memories flooded my mind. An unknown power surged from my heart, spreading to my very fingertips. It felt like magic, but different. I couldn't channel it through a staff, but I could infuse it into my body and weapons. A shield, a sword. This was Battle Aura, the ancient power that vanished 1,000 years ago. It disappeared when the god of Battle Aura and the undead god destroyed each other. Everyone had forgotten it even existed. The necklace was only supposed to awaken my magic sensitivity. Instead, I awakened something that should no longer exist. My combat rank was still 42, but a completely new talent appeared. Novice Aura Warrior. I quietly slipped out of bed without waking Yuna and headed straight to the training grounds. A few guards saluted me deeply, surprised to see me awake at this late hour. I grabbed a sword from the shed and stood before an ironclad wooden post used for daily training. Taking a deep breath, I focused that strange energy into the blade, slashed forward and sliced right through the iron post like butter. The thick structure split cleanly in half. The watching guard stood there frozen in sheer shock. Not even Ankro could cut it in one strike. Looking at my arms, my build shouldn't have generated such power. I was so excited, I completely ignored their stares. I could feel my internal aura level had drained significantly. One more strike would leave me empty. But as I closed my eyes, the energy began recovering slowly, expanding my capacity. Trust me, you and I are about to see me become a mid-level aura warrior very soon. Let's dive into the story of a man who lied to himself about not needing magic. But let us be real. Coming from another world, who would not crave supernatural power? I could never forget that brutal axe blow that almost ended me on the wall. If I had possessed this power back then, I would not have needed Bid's magical pendant to save my life. I would be buried deep underground by now. The next morning, Yoluna found me at the training grounds, looking completely relieved yet totally annoyed. She woke up in a freezing bed with absolutely no clue where I was. I felt guilty, but my excitement was just impossible to contain. Yoluna, do you know what battle aura is? Her eyes widened in absolute shock. I proved it by channeling raw energy into my arm, watching a bright yellow glow surge from my biceps, straight down to my fist. She grabbed my arm to examine it closely, comparing it to ancient texts. This was real, a legendary power, lost for 1,000 years, and I had just awakened it. For a split second, I wondered how this newly found power would work in, well, much more intimate moments with her. I immediately shook off those wild thoughts. After crushing the Thorn tribe, I purchased an absolute mountain of slave collars. My oath protected the Vasta, but I had absolutely no such agreement with the lizard men. Now pay attention here. I deployed my 200 original slaves as secret agents to win over their hearts from the inside. Our war against them dragged on all spring. By midsummer, every single tribe, large or small, was completely conquered. Dealing with the Vasta was even easier. Following the lead of the Thorn tribe, almost all of them willingly became my vassals. The stubborn few who refused were quickly hunted down by the Thorn loyalists and dragged right to me. I just locked collars on them and sent them back. Honestly, way less of a headache than dealing with the savage lizardmen. Once the surface was united, I discovered a terrifying underground threat. Goblins and gnomes had a massive kingdom down there, launching constant attacks. But that massive headache could wait. For now, my exhausted soldiers desperately needed to rest. My land expanded to 5 times the size of New Louisa, mostly wild forests and peaks. Now I ruled over 100,000 lizardmen. The young and powerful ones wore collars, forced to clear the rough, untamed land. The elderly and weak got restricted freedom, but it was still freedom. They built homes in designated zones, unable to wander too far. Tensions between humans and lizardmen were bound to happen, but my absolute authority kept the peace. My human settlers were just grateful refugees, so they kept quiet. Meanwhile, the terrified lizardmen braced themselves for whips and brutal labor. But they got something completely different. My guards patrolled as protectors, fighting off wild beasts and goblins. The food was decent, and they only worked from dawn to dusk. Nothing too crazy. Meanwhile, my hidden double agents kept silently swaying the minds of their fellow tribesmen. You and I can see they stopped wanting to escape. Turns out human rule was not so terrible after all. After years of grueling effort, and nearly 1,000 laborers helping Jawan and Galen, finally launched our very first ship. The Rima River is so incredibly wild, this massive vessel required immense weight just to stay balanced. With a hull over 200 meters long, crafted from redwood and iron plating, 3 massive sails proudly displayed my family crest. A beautiful blue bird soaring through the wind. Thousands of soldiers had to unite just to drag the behemoth into the water. Water exploded everywhere. My heart raced as violent rapids slammed into the hull, but the legendary ship stood absolutely firm. When they dropped anchor, it did not budge an inch. The brothers embraced each other, crying out in pure joy. I poured almost all of Wuri's trading profits straight into that shipyard. Between armor troops and construction, my treasury was wiped clean. But with this masterpiece trade routes that once took a whole year, could now be conquered in a fraction of that time. River travel was light years faster than slowland caravans. My lord, please name her, the brothers pleaded with pure excitement. I paused to think. The Pioneer. My very first ship. It sounded perfect. I now commanded 40,000 fully armored soldiers. That included 1,000 elite troops boasting combat ranks, over 50 plus 5,000 heavy cavalry waiting on their newly forged armor. With no impending wars, my territory felt strangely peaceful. Plus, my connection to the Holy Church kept me completely untouchable. Living this comfortable life was paradise, but a dangerous ambition kept keeping me awake. My homeland was cut off from Louisa by Lancer Fortress and a forest swarming with beastmen. Capturing that meant my entire domain would finally unite. To strike, I needed a perfectly legitimate excuse, and then it hit me. Once the Vasta were unified, I would use them as my proxies. If they attacked the Otto tribe, no one would ever suspect my hand. But that plan had to wait until my land stabilized. Yolena had to depart once more for vital church business. Before leaving, she tenderly fixed my collar. Trust me, things are about to get absolutely wild. Get ready because you and I are about to uncover a massive secret. She seriously whispered that the battle must stay hidden, and I instantly nodded. Then she looked at Elulu and casually asked when I planned on taking a concubine. Hearing that, Elulu's ears instantly perked up. I completely misread the room thinking Yoluna was warning me to behave myself. I have zero plans for that, I firmly replied. I am way too busy managing my own territory. Yoluna noticed my confusion but decided to let it drop. Her priority was securing her son's future. The firstborn would inherit everything, and being the heir's mother guaranteed her high society status. Once her carriage vanished from sight, I turned to Elulu and asked if I really looked like that kind of guy. She shook her head, calling me the most disciplined noble she had ever seen. I completely agreed with her. So there was absolutely nothing to worry about. For now, I had no such plans, but in the future, well, who knows? While I focused on ships and territory, things were unfolding at the Magic Academy that I wouldn't find out about until much later. Pay close attention here because you're about to see Princess Awire hit a wall. Despite Zaluka teaching her everything, her magic barely progressed. She finally understood what Grand Mage Arya warned her on day 1. Mastering magic demands absolute undivided focus. Awire split her time between alchemy experiments for her succubus mentor sword practice and magical studies. There just weren't enough hours, and her energy built up way too slowly to make real progress. She also worried about the bigger picture. Nan's army was crumbling, and the fragile peace between Ra and Yaid depended entirely on Norin staying strong enough to control them. If Norin collapsed entirely, the war would easily spread to Rima. She had to grow strong to protect her kingdom, or she'd end up as a mere political pawn for her father, King Charlie. She had no illusions about that. Charlie had traded land to free her, but his generosity had limits. If her value dropped, he would sacrifice her without a second thought. She even suspected that her previous kidnapping alongside her brother had been orchestrated by her very own family. After all, Count Wayne was executed immediately afterward. Before leaving, she made her ultimate power play. She offered Zaluka an incredible deal. If she came to Rima as a Grand Mage, she would run the Magic Academy and receive a Duchess title with Arya's status. Zaluka shook her head. I cannot. My master is in Noran, so I am staying. She was thinking of me, obviously, but using Arya as an excuse was extremely convenient. Awire couldn't hide her bitter disappointment. Bringing Zaluka home with her would have changed everything. Her father might have even considered making her queen, but without Zaluka, it was all a pipe dream. She comforted herself, knowing that being Zaluka's second best friend was already incredibly valuable. Think about it with me if Awire ever clashed with me, and the Church Zaluka would never let them destroy her friend. The two girls said their goodbyes. Zaluka felt a touch of sadness watching her friend ride away. Though honestly, Awire's endless questions were slowing down her training. Zaluka just wanted to become a Grand Mage as soon as possible and run back to my side. Things had quieted down lately, almost to the point of boredom. The lizard men stopped trying to escape our borders. Honestly, they had it much better now. In their tribes, securing food relied entirely on pure luck and hunting skills. Now they just worked and food appeared. They didn't even know my original citizens got silver coins on top of meals. The Thorn tribe moved right next to my settlement under Tiwa's leadership, encouraging other beast tribes to follow suit. 3 distinct races living together in surprising harmony. They didn't love it, but under my rule, they accepted it. The Pioneer transported supplies and people to the new territory, massively accelerating our overall development. Jawan and Galen were already building a second ship, while Ankro patrolled day and night in case of goblin attacks. While Fury prepped the Pioneer to sail toward Rima for trade. What used to take months by carriage now took a mere 2 weeks by river. Before leaving, I picked up a custom helmet from Big Silver with clean lines and an engraved blue bird. Its movable visor protected without blocking my vision. I suited up in my mithril armor, gripped my sword, and stared in the mirror. I finally looked like a true knight, not that weak noble from before. My combat level hit 45, and with my aura, I struck harder than Ankro. I was still nowhere near Reyna's level, but I was genuinely strong. All I lacked now was real combat technique and experience. So I made a bold decision. I'd board the merchant ship to Rima and register at the Adventurer Guild in Luis Coco. Rima offered countless ruins, bandits, wild beasts, and magical creatures. It was the absolute perfect training ground. The real reason for escaping Reina. If I stayed, she would never stop hovering. Trust me, our journey ahead is going to be wild. Come along with me as we watch our main character head straight into danger alone. I left a letter in my study for Elulu, explaining I was joining the merchant fleet, and Shal was in full control. Plus, if Yeluna came back, she would take charge of everything. Standing at the ship's bow, I drank Wolfuri's fruit wine, dramatically smashed the bottle, and threw my arms open to the wind. Wolfuri quietly picked up his bottle sarcastically, commenting that my dramatic drinking style was truly worthy of a legendary hero. Meanwhile, Elulu found my study completely empty, the window wide open, and the letter left behind feeling deeply hurt inside. I had never left like this. She knew I was escaping Reina's overprotection, but a feudal lord cannot just vanish without a trace. She sighed, hoping I would return by late autumn. Luckily, our grand ship sailed much smoother than I had ever anticipated. After 2 weeks on the Rima River, I was perfectly fine, but Wolfri and his entire crew could not stop vomiting. Maybe my past life's endurance helped out. When we docked at the Rima port, our massive vessel caused quite a stir. Local ships were 100 meters, but ours was over 200. The soldiers panicked until they saw the church insignia. Everyone instantly assumed only the church had the sheer power to construct such a massive monster. I suited up in my shining silver armor and headed to the Adventurers Guild, instantly catching everyone's attention. Beautiful girls tried talking to me, and party leaders wanted to recruit me since I looked like an imposing knight. I registered under 1, my name spelled backward a quick improval. My rank was E, the lowest tier, since I had 0 completed quests. Once they realized my low rank, most people backed away, assuming I was just a spoiled noble playing soldier. Now pay attention here, he immediately asks the receptionist for a highly dangerous rank C mission. I chose to hunt a bandit named Feng, an assassin, and former royal knight who had already taken out strong adventurers. The receptionist tried to warn me off, but I tapped my armor, insisting that despite my low rank, I was no amateur. Before she could process this, a cold voice interrupted, claiming the exact same quest. I turned around annoyed and completely froze. It was a wire. Talk about a small world. Luckily, she did not recognize me behind my massive helmet. Her swordmaster had sent her to hunt the bandit for training, and she was not backing down. She offered me any amount of gold. I shrugged and tapped my gleaming chestplate, telling her that an elite knight like me had absolutely no need for gold. I live solely for raw strength and true freedom. Doing the dirty work of hunting down bandits is a real warrior's duty. A delicate beauty like her should not be getting her hands dirty. Naturally, my arrogant attitude seemed to irritate her quite a bit. My presence made her incredibly uncomfortable for some strange reason. If I did not look so completely different from the weak Lin Wei, she might have actually figured it out. Glaring at me with deep suspicion, she demanded my name, and I said one without hesitation. Thank goodness I changed it. The tension was suffocating until the receptionist stepped in with a very timely suggestion. She proposed we team up to watch each other's backs. A wire agreed instantly, but I refused at the exact same moment. You and I both know that if she ever uncovers my true identity, things will get incredibly ugly real fast. Besides, sleeping anywhere near a woman who might absolutely despise me would make me terrified of waking up with a blade at my throat. However, the receptionist quickly explained that there were literally no other rank C combat missions left on the entire quest board. Since I traveled here specifically to grow stronger, Feng was my only real choice. Ultimately, I agreed to form a party. Awaya was not exactly thrilled about it either, but she just wanted to get this over with quickly and move on. We agreed to meet up at the city gates by sunset, since Feng only attacks at night. Before leaving, she offered a warning. Wearing pricey armor at rank E draws unwanted attention. The capital has dark alleys where the royal guards will never step foot. She walked away without waiting for a reply. It was a nice gesture, though I had already spotted the men tailing me. They had been shadowing me the second I started walking through the streets, showing off my flashy, glittering silver armor. I spent the afternoon exploring the gorgeous capital of Rima, which felt completely different. Everyone wore bright, colorful scarves. The fabric color revealed their social status and relationship standing. Lighter shades were reserved strictly for young single women. Family crests proudly displayed noble lineage, though not everyone still followed this ancient tradition in their everyday fashion. Awaya clearly did not care for those old customs. After grabbing a quick bite, I intentionally strolled into a dead-end alley. A trapped alley. Time to deal with my shadows, who turned out to be a dozen pretty low-level thugs. Their one-eyed leader with a curved sword barely scratched level 40. Honestly, not a single one of them had any worthwhile talent. Stick with me to see how our mysterious knight teaches these fools an absolutely unforgettable lesson. Come along with me to see how this starts a gang blocking my way because they knew I was a stranger. They pegged me as a rich kid or a clueless traveler. But when I drew my sword, its silver shine made their leader drool. They lunged, but their cheap iron weapons shattered against mine. I sliced through their blades and their bodies without hesitation. 4 or 5 of them dropped before they could even react. My heart was pounding like crazy. It was my very first time taking a life, yet I felt zero guilt. I had been surviving in this brutal world too long. Their one-eyed boss rushed me screaming, but he went down just as easily. The rest fled silently to avoid the city guards. Sheathing my sword, I realized Big's work was truly incredible. Not a single drop of blood stuck to the steel. Walking out, the onlookers, who thought I was doomed, stared in absolute shock. They expected me to die, but I took down 10 men alone. I checked into an inn paying 2 coppers a night for a month, while the landlady flirted non-stop. I took a quick nap and geared up again. This adventure life felt amazing. Sure, back home was comfortable, but it was just so incredibly boring. This was exactly the excitement I needed. And pay attention here, because Aimwire was already waiting at the gates. Checking her stats shocked me. Her combat score jumped from 40 to 90 since our last meeting, and her strategy sat at 140. She mastered one-handed swords alchemy and high-level magic, ranked S-. She had become extremely dangerous. "Let's go," she said coldly. No guards, no extra companions. She was completely used to being alone. She told me she would handle Fong while I cleared out his bandits. We walked in silence toward massive towering ruins. These were the remains of Eternalon, supposedly the greatest human empire ever built, destroyed thousands of years ago during a catastrophic war of gods. The crumbling massive structure still radiated ancient colossal power. Arriving there, we spotted Fong's camp, just some ragged tents scattered among the debris. I quickly checked his stats. A combat score of 89 and talent far exceeding mastery. He almost matched Aimwire's incredible sword skills. Keep your eyes open here, because you and I both know a warrior this strong being C rank is a major red flag. Before I could even think, Aimwire drew her sword and marched straight in without any plan or stealth. I froze. With a strategy stat of 140, was she really just charging armed bandits head-on? Was this extreme overconfidence? I stayed back waiting for the perfect moment. Fong watched her approach and wore a highly unsettling smirk. Turns out some noble put a 50,000 gold bounty on her head, dead or alive, knowing the Sword Saint's disciple trained alone. He assumed she did not know how to fight yet. Their blades clashed brutally, sending sparks flying everywhere. Right from the first exchange, Aimwire was forced back. Fong's technique was honestly impressive. He was not on the Sword Saint's level, but still strong enough to pressure her. Sensing my absence, she feared getting flanked. Just as the bandits moved to encircle her, I struck. 2 of them fell dead before they could even react. Their cheap scimitars shattered against my mithril blade. Within minutes, all 6 of them lay dead. No battle aura required just superior gear and clean technique. Fong never expected me. He thought she came completely alone. An armored knight showing up ruined his whole plan. He shoved Aimwire back with a heavy strike and fled deep into the ruins. Aimwire stood panting. Her sword stabbed into the ground. She stared at the dead bandits, then looked up at me. She probably thought I would run right. Instead, I wiped them out in minutes, forcing her to acknowledge my strength. But this was far from over. Fong escaped deeper into the ruins, where monsters and magical beasts lay in wait. "Fong is incredibly strong," she warned, "and the deeper ruins are way worse than any typical C-rank quest. If you are scared, go back. I will tell the guild you helped." She fully intended to hunt him down alone. I shrugged because this was my mission too. As we walked deeper into the ruins, my bad feeling only grew worse. The air felt heavy, like something was watching us. She acted tough, but I noticed the goosebumps covering her arms. She easily picked up Fong's trail, but it honestly felt like he was leaving behind clues on purpose. That should have been our first warning. We found him sitting up ahead, grinning like we were his personal entertainment. Before we could back away, a massive boulder crashed down, sealing the exit. "Welcome to my arena, kittens," Fong sneered. Over a dozen giant goblins emerged from the shadows, standing 3 meters tall and armed with massive clubs. These were not normal monsters, they were smart, powerful, and Fong stood untouched, showing he had raised them since birth. And that's the trap we fell into. Trust me, you and I never saw it coming. Come along with me and see how this overconfidence almost cost our main character his life due to zero real experience. A tough lesson. Awire reacted instantly, pulling out a hidden wand to burn several goblins with powerful fire magic. The blast shook the ruins. Dust rained down as cracks split the ceiling. She absolutely had to stop. "This place is going to collapse. One more spell and we are buried alive." Luckily, she stopped herself. Her magic cleared some of them, but Fong quickly hid. Besides, her master ordered her to defeat him with a sword, not magic. "Take care of the goblins," she ordered me. "Fong is mine." Then she charged ahead as the monsters surrounded me. One swung a massive club. The rushing wind warned me of its brutal force. Blocking that directly was impossible. Physically, they were way stronger than me. Since they weren't considered demi-humans, I couldn't read their stats either. Dodging. I slashed at its waist. Even with an incredible weapon cutting through the goblin's thick hide took massive effort. My combat level was still too low to pull off clean kills. I twisted the blade in the wound, Reina's lethal technique, and the beast fell. But more enemies rushed in without a break. No choice. I channeled my battle aura into the sword, and a brilliant yellow light enveloped the blade. I struck a spiked club and sliced it right in half thanks to the incredible power of my aura. Slicing through their flesh was incredibly easy now. 6 of those annoying pests hit the ground in the blink of an eye. The danger ended as the survivors fled. But wait, look at Awire, she was losing her fight terribly. Fong's weapon was magical, something she hadn't anticipated. With one devastating blow, he completely shattered her ordinary sword. She had purposely chosen a basic weapon just for training. Defenseless against a ruthless killer, the situation was critical. He smirked cruelly, raising his sword for the final blow. Then came the craziest twist ever. A massive stone block fell from the ceiling, completely crushing Fong. The ancient temple was collapsing from the previous explosion, and everything started crumbling around us. I reacted fast and hid in a sturdy corner. Awire barely managed to squeeze into a gap in the debris. The rumbling stopped and I emerged unharmed. Being an adventurer is terrifying but thrilling. Awire, though, crawled out looking terrible. She was covered in cuts with a nasty wound. She applied an alchemical potion that made her writhe in pain. That liquid burned like absolute hell, but it stopped the bleeding almost instantly. Her succubus master's handiwork, no doubt. Then she checked on me, and I noticed her opinion of me had completely flipped. I had soloed 7 or 8 giant goblins monsters, her sword, Saint Master claimed, surpassed any regular human in strength. Now she was convinced I was her equal in combat. Naturally, that meant she wanted to recruit me. "Lord One, shall we return to the guild to report the mission?" Her cold attitude was replaced by a warm smile. On the way back, she questioned me about being a No-Rans noble. I lied naturally without even blinking. "My father is a landless minor baron. I'll inherit nothing, and the kingdom of No-Rans is falling apart." So I acted like a skilled but unfortunate knight forced to carve his own path. She bought it completely. Her eyes sparkled. A landless baron's son would be easy to recruit. "Have you considered serving Rima? With your skill, King Charlie would gladly welcome you. I'll recommend you myself, so you can earn your own territory." I know what you're thinking. She was trying to manipulate me with fake promises, my own favorite trick. I put on an apologetic look. It's tempting, but my wife awaits me in No-Rans, and she'll worry if I miss the fleet. Already married, Awire looked disappointed, but pushed on, suggesting I bring my wife to Rima for her safety. I sidestepped the offer, saying I just needed silver coins to survive the harsh winter. She pulled out a heavy pouch with over 100 gold coins. "Think about it," she said. "Thanks for saving me. Find me if you change your mind." She handed me a silver badge engraved with her royal seal. "Show this to the capital guards, and they'll lead you to me." I quietly pocketed the pass. Direct palace access, handed straight to me. "How generous! Thank you, Your Highness. One will never forget your kindness." Finally, we parted ways at the Adventurers Guild entrance. She didn't ask me to remove my helmet, not from lack of curiosity, but because she was sure I'd seek her out. Those 100 gold coins were nothing more than pocket change for a princess. Since I still had time before the trade fleet set sail, I planned to finish more quests. Fighting those monsters gave me a thrill training can never match, and trust me, you and I are definitely ready for what comes next. Let's dive in and see how a simple dream comes alive, because thanks to you, when we are finally B rank. Big Nestalon threw his arm over my shoulders with a huge grin while we celebrated in the tavern. Our small adventure party had just leveled up. After reaching C rank alone, I spent the last month training with 3 companions. Nestalon was a bulky swordsman with a shield holding a solid combat rating of 76. Yanni was a sweet priestess with healing powers, and Califu, a clever half-breed archer with a cool big sister vibe. My stats had grown quite a bit. My combat rose to 60 strategy to 87, and my aura reached mid-level. Before, just 5 aura strikes would exhaust me. Now I could use it over 12 times without feeling tired. But despite all the time we spent together, I had never once removed my helmet in front of them. Watch closely here. This is where things get wild. I always ate alone to hide my face, prompting Iani to complain. They still did not know me. She said it with a pout, while Califu nodded. Nestalon laughed, patting my armor and telling me we were not in a dungeon. He told me to relax. They were good people, and nobody here knew me, so why not? Her spoon instantly clattered into her bowl as their faces flushed. My actual appearance completely blew their minds. Nestalon just chuckled, saying I was far too handsome to hide behind a helmet. I shyly raised my glass. We toasted the goddess of light. After some drinks, the girls cheered up, and Iani boldly asked if I was engaged. No, I replied. But before she could sigh in relief, I quickly added that I was married and deeply loved my wife. The light in Iani's eyes completely died. She leaned back to hide her disappointment, while Califu forced a polite smile. Talk about an awkward vibe. Nestalon quickly broke the silence by ordering more drinks. They promised to visit me in Norans whenever they could. I mentioned leaving in 2 days to join my merchant fleet before winter. I promised they would taste the best cream in the world. The girls smiled weakly, and Yanni asked when I would return. I'm not sure, but I will return so we can rank up together. Seeing her sad hurt, but it was for the best. If Yuluna found out a priestess had feelings for her fiancé, I could not even imagine the terrifying consequences of her wrath. A battlefield of jealous women was the last thing I needed. My lord, you are finally back. I was so worried. Fury had been waiting at the docks, watching the horizon, until he spotted my shining armor. I stepped onto the Pioneer, stripping off my heavy armor to change into the soft, comfortable robes of a noble. Let's be honest, the relief was massive. I sighed deeply as the weight of this entire month faded in the wind. Worry reported profits of over 1 million gold coins, though he warned the cream market was getting saturated. Competitors were trying to copy my product with a cheap mix of puffed fruits and sugar. Nothing like the original, since they did not know cream comes from whipping milk. I told him not to worry. Cream was never going to be my only business. Soon, we would trade weapons and alchemy potions items with far higher value. With Nia as our master alchemist, we would auction rare potions to bring in truly massive profits. Worry, with his sharp merchant instincts, noticed something different about me. A lethal aura I never had before. The boy who had sailed away had returned as a man capable of commanding absolute authority without any effort. And so we returned bringing livestock, poultry, and seeds never before seen in Louisa, like corn. A unique specialty. Getting it required a church travel pass and cost a fortune, but it would greatly boost Louisa's growth. When the Pioneer's silhouette appeared on the horizon, Elulu and Reina were already waiting anxiously at the docks. They had been counting down the days, waiting patiently there every single afternoon for over 2 weeks. The moment I stepped off the ramp, both girls threw themselves into my arms. Feeling them tremble, guilt consumed me. Leaving without a word was wrong, even with my reasons. Taking Reina along would have completely ruined her training's purpose. Master Elulu missed you so much, she whispered against my chest, before desperately checking my body for any injuries. She felt relieved finding nothing, but Reina instantly noticed my shift. Her dragon blood perception was sharp. She sensed something dangerous in me, a keen edge I lacked before leaving. That only annoyed her more, meaning I had faced something extremely dangerous without her protection by my side. I only accompanied the merchants to see Rama. There were no fights, nothing to worry about. I lied smoothly while patting their heads. At the mansion, the maids already had hot water ready for my bath. I sank into the warm water sighing. And trust me, when Elulu offered to wash my back, I did not hesitate. Let's dive in as these two girls come running in absolutely terrified that I might be seriously injured. Luckily, my armor protected me completely, letting Elulu breathe a sigh of relief until I felt a warm drop hit my shoulder. Turning around, I saw Elulu, crying silently, tears streaming down her face, while Reina's eyes were also completely red. Confused, I asked who dared to upset them, because surely nobody in my territory would be stupid enough to do that. "Master, are you throwing me out?" she whimpered. "Of course not. But why did you leave without saying a single word? What if something happened to you? What would I do?" Reina stayed silent, but her dragon tail flicked with intense anxiety. She felt the exact same way. Realizing I made them both cry, I sighed and promised to let them know next time. I would never leave in secret again. With winter arriving, my territory now united 3 races: humans, Vastia, and lizardmen. They did not get along perfectly due to natural hierarchies, but under my absolute rule, nobody dared start a real conflict. Out of nowhere, Tiwa brought terrible news about unusual underground activity. Watch closely now because those damn goblins were preparing a massive assault. These hideous creatures crawled up to hunt and rob the lizardmen, especially during harsh winters, when food was incredibly scarce. Before the Vastia and lizardmen suffered brutal losses against them, but now that they served me, destroying this plague was my duty. Gathering my troops, I sent 1,000 elite mithril guards to lead the direct invasion of their main cavern. 5,000 regular soldiers followed them, while another 5,000 guarded the exits to block any escape. Strong Vastia warriors patrolled the open skies, while lizardmen completely surrounded every single underground escape route. They had waited years for this sweet revenge, and freezing winter was the perfect time. The barren forests offered no shelter, and our aerial griffins made escape impossible, stretching the bloody conflict for over a month. We wiped out almost everyone and captured 30,000 to use as manual labor, feeling zero guilt over enslaving such beasts. With the brutal slaughter finished, I decided to head down personally and explore their subterranean kingdom. Rhea insisted on joining me. Navigating narrow tunnels, we reached a massive cavern that once housed nearly 400,000 goblins. Their huts were pathetic, thrown together with mud and dry straw like some sloppy childhood drawing. Even the Goblin King's grand palace was completely pitiful. Zero stats or real intelligence, possessing only an absurd reproduction rate that tormented the surface world for generations. Right as we were leaving, Reina spotted a strange glimmer, and I dug it up using my mithril sword. A massive vein of silvery white metal gleamed under our torches, boasting a polished surface that looked exactly like a mirror. It looked remarkably like mithril. I needed big to confirm its purity, but if it was real, the potential was limitless. You and I both know a mithril mine meant I could easily arm a legion to terrify the entire continent. Alongside my griffins, I would dominate the skies. By the way, those 13 eggs had finally hatched under Ancuna's loving care. The featherless pink little chicks opened their hungry beaks wide as she fed them with nothing but absolute infinite patience. Additionally, the Vastia brought over 500 wild griffins when joining our cause. These beasts were far more untamed. Even the Vastia struggled to handle them, so leaving that task to Ancuna was madness. I planned to take things slow until Big arrived, absolutely thrilled to confirm the mithril deposits were entirely real. He came running to find me early in the morning, practically shaking with pure unadulterated excitement. He spent the entire night inspecting the underground caverns and confirmed it was indeed an authentic vein. It was huge, 3 times larger than Yuna's fragment, with so much left to explore. This meant forging mithril armor for our warhorses and griffins. Where we find mithril, highly valuable minerals are bound to follow. I ordered the excavation to start, immediately choosing only my most loyal and trustworthy citizens for this crucial operation. Multiple guards patrolled the cavern day and night. Everything was going perfectly, except that Yoluno was missing this winter. A letter arrived explaining special duties, but I truly missed them. I had grown so used to having them around. Look on the bright side, at least I could focus entirely on training. My combat level hit 65, letting me train seriously with Reina, but I soon uncovered the real reason behind Yoluno's sudden absence. Every 10 years, the Empress of the White Elves traveled to the temple for a sacred purification ceremony. The Holy Maiden's presence was absolutely necessary to bathe the sovereign in her glorious blessed light. And trust me, you and I are about to meet Suren, the legendary empress. Let's dive into the story of this princess, fourth in line with a commoner father. But her terrifying magical talent and training under the great mage Arya seized her the throne after the bloodiest succession war ever seen. Today, she stood as one of the most powerful mages on the continent, surpassed by only one human. Strangely, Arya never returned to the Elf Kingdom since Suren took power. Despite her students' constant pleas, she always refused to see her. During the ceremony, Suren noticed that Yoluna had changed so much since their last meeting 10 years ago. That little girl who barely reached her waist was now an elegant and breathtaking young woman. The Empress's sharp senses detected something else on Yoluna's face. She was in love. After the event, Suren asked about her beloved. Yoluna's usually controlled emotions wavered for just an instant. A flash of pure happiness the Empress almost missed. "He's very handsome," Yoluna whispered with golden hair and brown eyes. "He always looks at everything with such sweet slowness. And when he speaks, his voice softens without him even realizing. And if I pretend I didn't hear, he patiently repeats it all over again." Suren smiled at such tenderness. As a centuries-old sovereign, Suren never found a perfect match. Finding just one man on her level was tough, and elf tradition demanded several to secure her noble lineage. The Council of Elders had been pressuring her for years, but she simply had zero interest in any proposed candidates. Just as Suren was about to visit her master, pay close attention here. Arya to meet her mysterious new youngest disciple, a familiar voice echoed from outside. "Yuna, are you in there?" It was Zaluka. While I was busy mining mithril and training, major things were happening at the church. Zaluka accidentally burst in and found Yoluna speaking with the white elf Empress Suren, an incredibly gorgeous woman with silver hair and the icy elegance of someone who has ruled for centuries. Suren happened to be Arya's second disciple, which made her Zaluka's senior in magic. Suren was attending the Purification Festival, a ritual every 10 years where the saintess bathed the sovereign in holy light. Instantly, she felt Zaluka's immense magic power, which was already bordering on the level of a great mage. She was captivated. She asked her to call her big sister instead of using royal titles, and then tried to touch her cat ears. My little kitty dodged her hand and hid behind Yoluna. "No one touches those ears except me." I bet you didn't know that, but what Suren truly wanted was to reunite with Arya. Years ago, she gave a forbidden book to her senior fellow Helen Keisha. That grimoire drove his magic wild while trying to resurrect his late wife. Instead of reviving her, he ended up turning into the most dangerous lich on the continent. Arya had to eliminate her own disciple to prevent disaster. She never forgave Suren, rejecting her visits for years. Neither Yoluna nor Zaluka knew this harsh truth. If Yoluna knew Suren caused her great-grandfather's ruin, she would have never agreed to perform the purification ritual. Zaluka agreed to take Suren to visit the Magic Academy and held Yoluna's hand. She needed her holy light magic to investigate, so the three of them set off together. Even the local beastman soldiers cleared a path when they saw Yoluna's robes. No one was foolish enough to defy the church. Besides, Suren alone was a walking hazard. She once pulverized a bone dragon using nothing but her bare hands. While I was focused on mining and training in Louisa, pivotal events were happening at the church that I would learn of later. Arya detected Suren's presence the moment she set foot there. She knew her former disciple's habits all too well. Every 10 years, Suren came for the ritual and tried desperately to see her master. Arya always turned her away, but seeing her now walking beside Zaluka filled her with deep unease. She did not want them getting close. Zaluka guided them both to the pavilion where Arya usually drank tea. Zaluka happily ran to her master and rubbed her cheek against hers, a cute daily habit. Arya simply patted her head with affection. Immediately, Yoluna greeted Arya with natural sweetness. Arya praised her growth as a saintess. Seeing her always recalled Helen, her first disciple, and the girl's great-grandfather. He used to be a cheerful boy learning magic by her side, and today his descendant was nearly an adult. Human lives were so brief, like shooting stars, beautiful yet fleeting. And then came Suren's turn. That fearsome empress who conquered her throne with blood was now trembling like a regretful schoolgirl. "I am sorry, master," she whispered. Coldly, Arya asked what for, and believe me, that silence froze the entire room. "All right, let's dive into a dark past," when Suren handed a forbidden grimoire to her student Helen. Helen tried using it to resurrect his deceased wife. Instead, his magic collapsed, turning him into an ultra-powerful lich. Arya had to eliminate her own student to prevent a catastrophe. She was never the same after that. Arya dropped the matter. She sent Zaluka and Yoluna to practice light magic together, her voice softening once they were alone. "Sit down, you used to have much more composure." They talked, and Surin confessed to feeling deeply lonely. All her human friends had been dead for years. Then she revealed her true plan, recruiting Siluka. The cat girl's magical talent was extraordinary, and this future Grand Mage would massively fuel Surin's grand ambitions. Arya saw right through her. "Do you want to recruit another future Grand Mage? And teach her forbidden magic too?" Surin grimaced, promising she would not let her touch anything forbidden if permitted. Arya's response was cold and direct. "You do not need my permission to recruit anyone. Try it, but if you play dirty, do not expect me to honor our bond." Surin smiled with absolute confidence. Without Arya's interference, winning over that innocent little cat girl would be effortless. She had no idea where her heart lay. Meanwhile, things were unfolding in the church that you and I would only understand much later. Yolna helped Zaluka master light magic by channeling pure radiant healing energy. Zaluka was thrilled, hugging and thanking Yoluna. "Now I can return to my master much sooner," she said, smiling excitedly. Yoluna froze. She had basically just accelerated the progress of her own romantic rival, but she tried to ignore it. Zaluka admitted she was about 3 years away from becoming a Grand Mage. Many had already tried to recruit her. Counts and nobles kept sending her letters, but she tossed every single invitation straight into the trash. She only wanted to stay by her master's side. Yoluna tested her warning that Empress Surind would offer immense royal riches. Zaluka's immediate response was to ask how she could decline the offer politely. She suggested saying she was focusing on her studies. Yoluna laughed. "What if she offers rare books?" The kitty's ears twitched. That completely tempted her. "Then I will say I prefer to remain with my beloved master." And so it went. Seeing her enter the academy, the Empress made her move, asking sweet sisterly questions about her graduation plans. When Zaluka replied that she wanted to continue studying magic, Surin instantly cast her bait. Rare magic books that even Arya did not possess. Zaluka's eyes lit up. "Do you really have that many books?" Surin smiled, offering her the role of honorary director at the Elven Academy, granting unlimited access to their library. Now pay attention here, because accepting this tempting offer would have tied Zaluka to the White Elves. Yoluna noticed the trap and smoothly intervened. "Your Majesty, I am also interested in those books. May I read them?" Surin politely declined. A church saint allied with elves would cause suspicion, but that warning was more than enough. Even the sweet, gentle Zaluka understood the hidden message. Yoluna was warning her of the danger. Zaluka politely backtracked. "I am sorry, big sister. I prefer to stay with my master. Maybe I will visit later." Surin hid her disappointment, squeezing her hand affectionately. "Promise me you will visit soon. Without fail next time." As Surin left, Zaluka felt she had escaped by a miracle, thanks to Yoluna's quick wit. That girl would truly make a wonderful family member one day. Honestly though, Zaluka really wanted those rare books. If a safe chance came to read them, she would grab it. "Master, do you really have to leave?" Alu's voice trembled as I prepared for my second open journey to Ra. I had learned my lesson. I hugged her gently, whispering that I would return safe and sound very quickly. My breath against her ear made her flush completely. She wanted to hold me longer, but pulled back, her heart racing. Suddenly, Reina came bursting through the door. "Master, I am going with you this time?" After leaving her behind last time, I knew she would not take no for an answer. Rejecting her felt like a crime. "Fine," I agreed. But her white dragon tail was too eye-catching, so I used Nia's dye to paint it black. For some strange reason, the room grew incredibly warm as my hands brushed against her tail. Steam was practically rising from the scales on her arms, her face flushing crimson, but I pretended not to notice. I checked her stats and nearly choked. Her combat power had reached 201. And with that cliffhanger, you and I are done for today. Trust me, the next chapter gets absolutely insane. Come along with me to meet this S+ rank powerhouse, one of the strongest on the continent. Without the battle aura, only I possessed, even sword saints couldn't match her raw strength. Oh, and I dyed my armor black. Silver stood out too much for an anonymous adventurer. Plus, Big designed Reyna's armor with a custom slot for her tail. Her dragon scales were tougher than mithril anyway, making the armor pretty much useless. But an adventurer has to look the part, and I swear I wasn't thinking about how gorgeous an armored dragon girl looked. Not at all. Back home, everything was going perfectly. The surviving goblins wore slave collars serving as super cheap labor. My citizens could even rent out goblin workers for a few copper coins to help them in the fields. Technically, all the land was mine, but anyone clearing new ground won usage rights. Wealthy citizens mean more taxes. Everyone wins. My cavalry horses were already breeding on their own. No more needed. And Ancuna kept taming wild griffins from Vastia without stopping. By next year, I estimated we would have over 1,000 griffins in total. A griffin cavalry was finally a reality. Standing at the bow with the wind roaring, I saw the skeleton of a second ship in the shipyard. It would be ready by the time I got back. With enough ships, my plan was to sail west straight to Ocean Race territory. They say mermaids live there, and there is no way I am missing that show. Stepping back onto Rima soil felt incredibly liberating. Here, I wasn't some feudal lord, just an ordinary adventurer. I absolutely loved that feeling. Reyna was tense, scanning for threats. I told her to relax. We weren't in some dungeon. I already registered her as an E rank beforehand. As long as a B rank or higher adventurer led the party, she could join any available mission. At our usual tavern, Nestalon spotted me instantly, despite my black armor. "One over here!" he shouted in his booming voice. Iani and Califu's eyes lit up too. Those two were still totally infatuated with me even though they knew I was already married. I took off my helmet to greet them, and that's when they noticed Reyna behind me, fully armored with her dyed tail swaying. "This is Reyna, my sister." Sister Califu glanced suspiciously at her tail. I was, after all, a completely pure human. Reyna was clearly a demi-human. Half-sister, same father, different mother. They bought the lie hook, line, and sinker. Nobles with weird tastes were nothing new. They had definitely seen much worse before. Both girls instantly adored Reyna. Iani got super affectionate, probably hoping to get closer to me through my supposed little sister. While they chatted, Nestalon leaned in. Now watch closely, because what he told me next was absolutely massive. He had tracked down 2 earth dragons in the ruins. The female just laid eggs and was weak. Only the male would be dangerous. Earth dragons were just as ferocious as griffins, but they couldn't fly. They were agile in mountains and deserts, easily outperforming horses on rough terrain. A tamed one was worth a fortune in Rima. At the mention of eggs, my heart raced. I wanted them. "What do you say we going?" Nestalon asked excitedly. I tapped the table, thinking. Having Reyna with us meant we didn't need backup plans. Obviously, I wasn't going to reveal that. "I'm in, but let's prepare well." He suggested buying some strength potions. I told him I brought 10 Nay potions. That was plenty. "Let's move then," he shouted, turning back to the rest of the group. "Girls, we have a job." Then he looked at Reyna doubtfully. "Is your sister ready? An earth dragon can easily crush A-rank adventurers." "She's stronger than she looks," I replied. He took one look at her high-quality armor and decided to trust me. I had never led them into failure. Califu immediately stepped up, acting like a protective big sister. "Reyna, stay behind me, I'll protect you." Yanni insisted too. "Yeah, keep safe." Behind her visor, Reyna completely froze up. She probably wanted to scream that she could finish this quest solo without even breaking a sweat. But she stayed quiet, while those two adopted her as their cute little sister. No clue what fantasy they cooked up, but it was hilarious to watch. I bet you didn't expect things to end before they could even process what happened. Reyna walked up to the terrifyingly strong, 3-meter-tall male dragon and knocked him cold in minutes. Her white dragon lineage exerted so much overwhelming pressure on the lesser creature that it could barely fight back. Subduing the weakened female was a total breeze. My party was left absolutely speechless. They prepared for a brutal life-or-death battle only to get a 3-minute show. "We're rich," Nestalon muttered, pinching himself. 2 adult dragons and 6 eggs. A wild one cost 100,000 gold, and the pair was worth even more. The eggs were 50,000 each. In total, around 600,000 gold coins, enough to retire forever. Iani and Califu stood frozen. They promised to protect Reyna, but she handled it alone. Talk about some next-level madness we just witnessed. Alright, you and I are about to watch how a leader divides legendary loot. I propose giving 200,000 to Reyna, 100,000 to Nestalon, and splitting the rest evenly. Then I asked for the 6 eggs, giving up my share of the 2 adult dragons in return. This would cost me 40,000 gold coins compared to a regular even split. But those eggs were priceless, and I could already picture knights riding land dragons into battle. These beasts outmatched any warhorse, but my loyal companions refused to let me lose money. Nestalon refused calling us brothers in arms. He insisted I keep the eggs and split the gold anyway. Ian and Khalifa nodded firmly, refusing to take advantage of my generosity like that. It touched my heart. In a world of endless betrayal for gold, finding true loyalty is rare. I wanted to recruit all 3 for Louisa someday. We toasted our grand victory with massive mugs of beer. Afterwards, Nessun sold the dragons to the Rima Guild, while the girls headed to a nearby inn. Under the cover of night, Reyna and I secured the 6 eggs inside the Pioneer, and I finally relaxed. 6 future war mounts, stronger than any horse on the continent. Master, did I do well today? Rhea asked shyly, wagging her tail with blushing cheeks, looking at me with hopeful eyes for approval. I patted her head, telling her she did great. She closed her eyes and leaned in like a sweet kitten. Now pay attention here, because rumors of a B- ranked team capturing legendary beasts spread like wildfire. The public was in absolute shock. The Adventurers Guild promoted us directly to rank A. Going from rank C to A in under a year was unheard of. Soon our fame caught a wire's eye. She ordered an investigation into us, though digging up Nestalon Ian and Khalifa's pasts was too easy. But Wyan and Reyna of Noran's nameless orphans, from the chaos of war, left no paper trail at all. She noticed Rhea was listed as a lizard woman, a noble knight with a sister of that beast race. She began plotting to recruit me for her guard, knowing a brutal war with Norans was fast approaching. She figured it would be 2 years before King Ziluk made his desperate move. She needed powerful warriors not to claim the crown, but to avoid becoming a mere political pawn. One sunny afternoon, I visited a blacksmith with the crew to buy some high-quality leather armor. You and I both know how crazy fate is, because suddenly I saw Lena, my past-life fiancée. My heart stopped. She looked entirely different. The shy, fragile, noble girl from my memories had completely vanished. Standing there was a dangerous, sharp-eyed woman radiating the presence of a leopard on the hunt. Her stats showed combat at 65, strategy at 80, and flawless mastery with both sword and dagger. Feeling my gaze despite my full heavy armor, she walked right over to me with a beautifully elegant smile. "Good day, noble knight. You must know it is quite impolite to stare so intently at a lady." Bowing, I disguised my voice. "Forgive me, fair lady, your grace captivated me." She smiled, but with deep bitterness. I knew what was happening. She had recognized me, leaving me completely frozen inside my heavy armor. She then casually chatted with my crew, greeting them by name. Our team was getting famous. Turning to me, she addressed me as Sir Wan, but I noticed her lips almost whisper my past name, Lin Wei first. She accepted a newly forged dagger from the blacksmith, gave a polite farewell, and walked out. The sunlight caught her silhouette as her golden hair swayed beautifully. Once she left, Ian asked how she knew his name. I could only let out a deep sigh. Who knows? But I was absolutely certain she recognized me, just as I had recognized her instantly. Some things can never go back to the way they were drifting away like autumn leaves in the wind. They never return. By the way, there are 5 dragon types on this continent: white, red, green, blue, and black. Red dragons are the strongest and smartest, while whites are the dumbest, alongside massive fire and ice variants. High above them all reign the legendary ancient and primordial dragons, existing only in ancient scrolls. Recently, a terrifying red dragon was spotted deep within the ruins of Rima. In the end, we're invited to a dragon hunt. Trust me, you and I will witness this absolute madness next time. If she wants a dragon hunt, Your Highness, I refuse. But stick with me to see how she sweetens the deal. An upgrade to S-rank noble titles, 10,000 gold coins, and free royal weapons. She gathered 13 A-rank teams and 3 S-ranks. The beast wasn't even grown yet. I nearly refused, but Nessalon stopped me. Looking at my squad, I saw fire in their eyes. Iani, Nessalon, Califo, they all wanted this glory. I promised we would discuss it. But back at the tavern, we had our first real clash. Nessalon loved adventure. He simply could not say no to a dragon hunt. The Earth Dragon Harvest solved Iani and Califu's money issues, but the sheer glory of a real dragon hunt called to them. Only Rhea backed me up. A heavy silence fell as they drank. Only Reyna sat happily devouring meat in red sauce, totally oblivious. "Are we really not going?" Wanyani asked. I tried to calmly talk sense into them. Yani, if you die, what happens to your sister? She fell silent, then whispered that her savings would pay for her sister's magic school. I want this, she insisted. I turned to Nessalon. What about your wife and kid? He burst into a loud laugh. I chose this life. If I fall, I have saved enough for them. Califu stayed quiet, but her eyes spoke volumes. Her mother was terminally ill, and her deadbeat father constantly squeezed her for gambling money. Life had been brutal to her. I looked around. We have bled for too long. I want my entire Crimson Squad to retire safely. Please think of your families. They went quiet and finally sighed in defeat. Fine when you are the captain. You are right. We stay together. Yani toasted to our Crimson Squad. To our days of adventure, she said. Reina looked up confused, asking why we were not toasting the goddess today. Nessalon slammed the table, laughing. Not today. There is always time. After that dragon mess, I ordered everyone to take a break. They needed it. Skipping a legendary dragon hunt would eat away at any elite adventurer's pride. I spent weeks exploring ancient ruins, with Reina slaying bandits and beasts to sharpen my edge. I even checked out the slave markets, but nothing caught my eye. Autumn arrived. My trade fleet would soon set sail back home. I deeply wanted one last feast with my Crimson Squad before setting sail. I booked our usual table, pre-ordered their favorite foods, and bought a massive barrel of ice-cold ale. But when I went looking for Iani, her landlady Finkel looked worried. She hadn't seen her in 10 days, assuming we were out on a long quest. We hadn't taken a job in 2 months. Finkel added that Iani usually only visited her sister for about 4 days. And pay attention here. The landlady laughed, saying Iani always whispered my name while eating, making everyone think we were dating. A terrible knot tightened in my gut. I immediately rushed over to Califu's house. She was gone too. Her deadbeat father had run off, leaving a neighbor to tend to her sick mother. The home smelled heavily of strong medicinal herbs. Her mother was terribly frail from sickness, though still remarkably graceful. You must be Juan. My girl never stops talking about you, she whispered, asking me to remove my helmet. I hesitated, but complied. She smiled, teasing that her daughter had excellent taste, and asked if I loved Califu. Before I could speak, she admitted she knew I was married. She did not care, even offering her daughter as a concubine. She simply wanted her daughter to be happy, begging me never to mention this conversation to her. I know what you're thinking. And yes, my heart sank, as the terrifying truth of where they went clicked. I couldn't worry this sick mother. I rushed to Nessalon's house, where his wife welcomed me warmly. His young daughter was absolutely precious. His wife assumed we were out hunting together, and I couldn't bear to break her heart. Walking away, the horrific rumors of the dragon battle flooded my mind. That bloody crusade had ended days ago. Half of the raid teams were wiped out. A legendary S-rank squad had vanished without a trace. I originally felt relieved we skipped it, but now a cold dread crept in. Did they go anyway? Reina sensed my sheer panic and tugged my sleeve. We must head to the capital immediately, I commanded. Princess Awire would know the exact fate of that doomed expeditionary force. As their captain, I had to find out. I forced my way into the palace, but she was furious to see me. She still held a grudge over our rejection. Yet she quickly admitted the entire raid was a horrific bloodbath. The red dragon was a godlike threat. Its magic resistance was so immense it swallowed 2 great archmages alive. And that is where we leave it, waiting to see if our crew survived this horrific bloody massacre. Alright, stick with me here. They only wounded the dragon before it fled straight to the spine of the world mountains. Maybe even ancient dragons. Now Awire feared their revenge, begging me to help defend Raima if the worst ever happened. I gave her a very diplomatic, evasive answer. After all, anyone who loves this land would fight such a massive threat. No promises, no commitments. She just gave a knowing smile, reading me perfectly without pushing. I left with Reina, feeling totally relieved. But wait, my companions had not joined the dragon hunt. Where on earth had they been for those 10 whole days? Heading back, I suddenly heard her frantic voice calling out to me. She had just returned, and the innkeeper pointed her my way. I asked where they had been, feeling immense relief seeing her completely safe and sound. She explained that the 3 of them spent over 10 days hunting a rare magic rodent in the ruins, but came back empty-handed. Just a failed hunt, not an epic dragon battle. Honestly, I felt so foolish for panicking like that. They actually listened to me. I booked a tavern table for one last dinner together, before heading back to Norrens for the winter. Her face fell the moment she realized I was leaving. She dashed off to find Califo while I looked for Nestalon. Once I left, the innkeeper told Iani something that changed everything. Your captain was absolutely worried sick about you. With all the dragon chaos, he thought you joined the hunt. Iani's eyes went wide in total shock. Pay close attention here. He only searched for her out of fear. She died not because of romantic feelings. She felt slightly disappointed, but hey, at least she avoided those dragons. She kept her promise for her helpless little sister, holding back her deep feelings. She decided to wait out the long winter. Next time we met, she would find the courage to confess. Returning to Louisa, I found Yoluna already waiting there, patiently. No angry scolding. She just silently helped me remove my heavy armor and pulled me into a warm, gentle embrace. Elu and Reina watched us with pure envy. Yoluna casually asked about Raima, and I nervously took her hand, fearing she was mad. My hands were incredibly rough and calloused from brutal training, but she seemed to absolutely love holding them. She arrived back in autumn and wanted to seek me out, but the territory's heavy paperwork was crushing shells. So Yoluna stepped up and hired a team of assistants for minor tasks. Viewing Louisa as the rightful lady of the land, she found massive room for improvement, especially with Vastia and the lizardmen. She completely reorganized our finances, reclaimed the mines from greedy merchants, and funded the local miners. Over at Big's workshop, they forged 2,000 mithril armors, enough to fully equip all of our majestic griffins. He believed even more mithril was hiding underground. If it is a massive vein, our future potential is absolutely insane. Back at the castle, I gently removed Yoluna's cloak, hung it, and pulled her close when no one was looking. She touched my forehead, yielding to my touch. She detailed every single territorial decision, before adding with soft caution. These choices were not mine to make. If this bothers you, I will stop. I just shook my head. When you think about it, her affection level hitting 100 proves she did absolutely everything out of love for me. Even without the system panel, her love was as clear as fragrant tea. The Lady of Louisa can do whatever she wants. I back you completely. You need no solemn oaths to prove your worth. She smiled, pure warmth lighting up her eyes. As winter set in, our earth dragon eggs finally hatched. 6 teal babies completely able to walk from day one. Way stronger than the baby griffins. They fought at first, but soon teamed up to raid the neighboring farm's chickens. Life went on as usual, but I still had much bigger problems to deal with. My forces grew to 100,000 soldiers. Ankro selected 100 elites with combat ratings over 80. After double-checking their stats with my own eyes, they became legendary Griffin Knights armed with pure mithril and treated even better than my personal elite squad. They were my ultimate strike force for major wars, training endlessly to master a perfect bond with their flying mounts. Ruling felt like endless work. Sometimes I missed the simple life of adventuring, constant fighting, and getting stronger every day. But then a shocking rumor from the local tavern completely shattered my peaceful nostalgia. A fearsome red dragon had attacked Raima's capital. The dark news arrived a whole month late. I fully expected dragon vengeance, but never imagined it would happen this quickly. I immediately panicked for Nestaloniani and Califo, though they lived far from the capital and were hopefully safe. Raima is now deadlier than ever. Join me next time to see if he can bring them all home safely when winter ends. Let's dive in and see who I really am. My stats had skyrocketed. Combat at 70, strategy at 88, and a shiny brand new talent, one-handed sword mastery. Even without my battle aura, I matched Ankro, though I suspected he held back. I still wished I could use magic. Battle aura was strong, but it only boosted my body. No casting it like a spell or causing massive explosions. It is impossible to show off without a dramatic exit. Too bad, Yuna and I were already engaged for 2 years. We would marry next year. We honestly felt like an old couple, but I would give her the most spectacular wedding ever. She deserved nothing less. Now I just had to figure out how to deal with my grandfather's annoying Jebo. Maybe I would send some mithril to the temple as a son-in-law offering. After a quiet training session, I had tea in the castle. Elu came to serve me wearing clothes too light for the winter, so I placed my coat over her shoulders. I told her to bundle up. If she got sick, I would have to nurse her. She blushed and whispered yes. I treated her so much like family that she felt grateful, yet frustrated, that I did not look at her with romantic eyes. She had been by my side since childhood, By any normal standard, she would have been mine a long time ago. Now watch closely. Shao brought me a letter from Duke Simon filled with compliments and overly kind words. Clearly life was not simple for the nobility of Nan. The country was divided between the dogmen who dominated almost everything, and a new noble alliance supporting the first prince. Simon's letter requested that even if Elulu never returned, she keep her family name. It also warned that King Ziluk the 13th was plotting something soon. I asked Elu if she wanted to reclaim her old last name, but she refused instantly, so I dropped the subject. I tossed the letter on the table and collapsed onto the sofa. Elu approached silently to give me a massage. One more trip to Ra after winter, and I would retire from adventuring forever. Sleep quickly overcame me on the armchair. Waking up, I noticed my head resting on Elu's lap. She had slipped right under me while I slept. Biglen woke me from my nap shouting my name. With my mind still foggy, I realized I was still lying on Elu's lap. She looked down at me with a tender smile. No wonder everything felt so comfortable and smelled so exquisite. Let's pause for a second. That milky scent was dangerously sweet, unlike Yoluna's floral touch. Who wouldn't love? Both Biglen was jumping with excitement. My lord, we confirmed a mithril vein below, and even better, we discovered red mithril. He showed me a fist-sized piece glowing with a deep red light. This mineral is incredibly rare and only appears in massive deposits. It is an absolute superconductor. When channeling magic or battle aura through it, the power multiplies drastically. Furthermore, it is 3 times harder than common mithril. Even a tiny fragment fetches astronomical prices on the market. A piece like this was priceless. If the continent's mages found out, they would sell their very souls for a tiny piece. Good thing Biglen's loyalty was at 100%. Anyone else would have run off with this loot. When I asked what reward he wanted, he turned red as a tomato and confessed he wanted a dwarf woman. I almost burst out laughing. It was only fair the man worked without rest and already had plenty of coins. I promised to buy some female dwarfs at the slave market for him to choose. Right after I ordered 15 wands and 2 weapons with the red mithril. A longsword for me and a giant scythe for Reyna. I designed the sketch of the scythe on a piece of parchment. A dragon girl, wielding a colossal crimson scythe, looked incredible. Motivated by his reward, Biglen worked at an amazing speed. He forged 10 wands with small fragments, boosting magic power by 20%. 3 wands with medium gems gave a 50% boost, and 2 premium ones almost doubled the mage's power. The scythe consumed a third of the available red mithril, with the rest being pure mithril, a ridiculously expensive luxury. When I handed it to Reyna, the weapon felt incredibly heavy, but she swung it without the slightest effort. The giant blade left dark red trails. It seemed too big for her small figure, but that contrast looked spectacular. Give it a name, Reyna. She looked at me with shining eyes, asking me to name it Red Moon. Crimson blade, silver handle. The name fit perfectly. I reserved the 2 best creations for the women I loved most. One for Yoluna and another for Zaluka. I would never have favorites. The next were for Grand Majoria Grandpas Jebo and Narcel. I had long promised her rare magic books I never found, so this premium wand was the least she deserved. She faithfully trained my magic core for years. I would save the rest of the wands for the future. Trust me, you and I know gifts like this are the ultimate ace up your sleeve. Let's dive into how our beloved Zaluka has been training non-stop since Awire left, upgrading her skills at a mind-blowing pace. She was incredibly close to reaching Great Mage rank when Arya called her over one day with a very strange look. Your little Viscount never ceases to amaze me. I get that the church has mithril, but a red mithril wand. That is next level. She sounded slightly bitter. The wand I sent her only had fingernail-sized red mithril, which was already priceless. But Zaluka's wand featured a massive chunk that easily doubled her magical output. Arya understood completely why Zaluka's was superior, but it still stung her pride. She joked that staying single for centuries was a mistake, while Zaluka's face lit up knowing the gift came from me. She held that 1-meter wand as if it were the most precious treasure in the entire world. Arya explained that red mithril boosts magic, but slowly burns away, warning her not to be stingy with its use. As the future partner of Louisa, with access to a mithril mine money is no issue. Do not hold back, Arya joked. Zaluka's face flushed bright red. Arya could only sigh to herself. Watch closely now, the main wife spot was already taken. But at least my sweet cat girl would be well cared for. Meanwhile at the church, Grandfather Joe was researching forbidden magic inside his soundproofed private chamber. Just then a bishop arrived carrying my gift box which bore the bluebird emblem of Louisa. The old man's face darkened instantly. "It is from Linway, throw it out!" he spat, knocking the box away. The red mithril wand rolled across the floor, its crimson crystal catching the bright sunlight. The bishop's eyes nearly popped out. Joe froze, staring at that fingernail-sized piece of red mithril, an incredibly rare material. He coughed awkwardly, claiming he only meant to discard the box, and quickly snatched up the wand. Then he stared at the box bearing my family crest, and had second thoughts. Throwing away a thoughtful gift from his future grandson-in-law would be rude, right? So he grabbed the box too. Well, the kid is not completely useless. That red mithril is worth far more than the block Yoluna took from the treasury. The old man's attitude shifted instantly. What else do we have locked away in storage? Louisa is still growing. Send them wheat, soybeans, corn, and priestesses. Yes, send way more priestesses over there. The bishop stood frozen, completely baffled by the old man's sudden mood swing. Finally, winter had come to an end. But pay attention here, training under Ankro pushed me way further than I ever imagined possible. I could now clash on equal footing without using battle aura, even when his power exceeded 100. My stats were insane. My combat score hit 80, and my strategy reached 89, finally mastering the one-handed sword technique. Unbelievable considering I started at 5, my battle aura reached high tier, and when I channeled it into my red mithril sword, even Reina hesitated to block me head-on. She admitted she felt threatened, and a dragon's perception never lies. My forces were massive 100,000 human guards, 50,000 lizardmen soldiers, and the Vastia tribes all standing ready. 100 griffin knights patrolled the skies, fully armored in mithril, and wielding heavy longbows and swords. 400 more riders trained to hit our 500 target in 6 months, while the land dragons bred incredibly fast. Once the dragon cavalry was deployed, the heavy forces of Raime or Yade wouldn't stand a single chance. We completed our second great ship. Between my 2 territories, the mine and the trade routes, everything fell into place perfectly. I just needed a chance to link both Louisa territories by conquering the lands dividing them. Norrell kept writing from the wasteland suggesting exactly that, but the timing wasn't right yet. I would wait for them to crumble from within, striking during the chaos. As spring arrived, I prepared my final journey to Rai. This time, Yoluna firmly insisted on joining me to see what I was up to, keeping her griffin escort ready for her return. I couldn't refuse. Wuri was absolutely terrified. Serving me was one thing, but having the legendary saintess on board was next level. He noticed what I already knew. Yoluna's gaze was warm and loving when looking at me, but turned cold and distant toward anyone else. She hid it well, but his merchant instincts caught every single detail. The trip was pleasant, perhaps a bit too pleasant. With Yoluna and Reina by my side, life on board felt like a vacation. I had to remind myself I was here to fight. And trust me, that harsh dose of reality hit us the moment we stepped off. The Adventurer Guild area lay in ruins after the Red Dragon's attack, reduced to rubble. Ian and Eisen were standing nearby. Come along with me as we see how Nestalan and Khalifu's home was left in ruins. Walking through Raima with Yoluna and Raina, I witnessed the Red Dragon's path of destruction. Children were crying among the rubble, while people stared blankly at their ruined homes. I wondered how many loved ones lay buried there. The Adventurers Guild, where my entire journey first began, took the absolute worst hit. Scorched walls and collapsed buildings. The dragon struck here first. Ian Eisen was gone. Nothing but ruins remained. I closed my eyes, and her bright, cheerful face flashed in my mind. The tavern keeper, the landlady, everyone waving goodbye like it was just yesterday. I asked Yoluna and Reina to wait on the ship, and Yuna just nodded silently. "I will wait for you," she said. I headed to Khalifu's house first. Her neighborhood was almost completely untouched. The door was slightly open, carrying a heavy scent of medicine. Her mother greeted me weakly, looking far worse than before. Seeing me, she burst into tears. She told me her daughter Khalifu had died in battle, and I just stood there in silence. I always pretended not to notice Khalifu's feelings for me, but she was a friend, a truly wonderful one. And now she was gone. Pay close attention here. Her mother pulled a tiny crimson badge from under her pillow. Khalifu's Crimson Squad medal had a small symbol engraved on it, It felt unbelievably heavy. I offered to bring her to live in Noren's. She politely declined, saying this was her home. Califu had left plenty of money. She thanked me, asking for nothing more. Closing the door gently, I decided to ask Wolferi to check in on her whenever the merchant fleet passed by. Next, I walked to Nestalon's house, which was furthest from the attack. Life there seemed normal, with merchants, travelers, and extra guards. Seeing his little daughter Lami playing happily in the yard brought me immense relief. I knelt down and removed my helmet. Lami remembered me, her face lighting up instantly. Handsome big brother mommy is daddy coming home soon too. His wife Elwa stepped out looking exhausted. She sent Lami away to play and turned to me, but I already knew. Lami had asked when her father would return, and Elwa told her he was a great dragon-slaying hero who would return when the Rima flowers bloomed. He had given her a seed to plant her dad's favorite flower, but that seed was bright red. Living Rima seeds are green. Red means it was boiled. A dead seed will never bloom no matter how much a little girl loves it. Without asking a single question, that tiny red seed had already given me the final devastating answer. Elwa told me what happened. When the red dragon attacked in winter, Nestalon heard the news and rushed straight to the disaster zone. The guards later told her he died fighting. She understood completely that this was simply the harsh fate of every adventurer. He had left more than enough gold for her and Lami to live comfortably forever. But she feared people who knew about his Earth Dragon earnings would target their money. I promised her no one would ever bother them. Every single member of the Crimson Squad deserves protection. She silently handed me Nestalon's crimson badge and went back inside. Little Lami ran over when I waved. Handsome big brother, mommy says I should call you uncle, but I like brother much better. She was adorable, looking so much like her mother. Luckily, she did not inherit Nestalon's rugged, rough face. She asked me to play again. I know you felt that same painful lump in your throat during our pinky promise. Ria stood nearby in silence. She understood everything too. Khalifa and I had always treated her like a little sister. I had just one last visit left to make. Ian's younger sister Cynthia was studying at the Rima Magic Academy, far from the devastation. She was 13, wore an oversized robe, and clearly did not want to see me. Her talent was breathtaking. Becoming an apprentice mage at just 13 required absolute unwavering dedication. She treated me with cold indifference. Her sister had been buried beneath the heavy rubble near the guild. Cynthia only recovered a blood-stained leather armor and personal items. She knew I was the man her sister loved. Once she wanted to meet me, but not anymore. I told her to find me if she ever needed help. She said nothing, just handed me a letter and Ian's scorched but clean crimson badge. Then she walked away. I opened the letter. One, if you are reading this, I am probably dead. I wrote this hoping it would never be needed, but you must know how I feel. I love you. I wanted to marry you and have so many children. You said you loved your wife, but I still felt deeply for you. Maybe you think I have no shame, but I cannot control my own heart. And it is not just because you are handsome. Do not think I'm that shallow. Ever since you joined the squad, I knew you were a truly good person. We had other vanguards before, but none were as caring. You always watched over where Khalifu and I were standing. You noticed what foods I liked. Because of you, I became a picky eater. You must be an angel sent by the goddess. Once winter ends, I will tell you my feelings. And trust me, you and I are both left completely heartbroken by this letter. Do not you dare laugh at me, okay? Or I will show you that a priestess staff is not just for healing. Come along with me on this. The letter was short, but for the first time I wanted to hunt a dragon. Taking down a dragon would not be easy, and Awire's massive failure proved exactly that. From what I gathered, her blind ambition made her hire random adventurers instead of Rima's actual royal army. She wanted all that glory for herself. Had she asked King Charlie for his mage corps with hundreds of high-level fighters and great wizards, they would have easily annihilated that beast. But then she would have had to share the credit. Her greed triggered disaster by severely underestimating the beast's magical resistance. 3 great mages attacked and the dragon devoured 2 of them alive. Regular soldiers could not even scratch it without battle aura, which was a power nobody in this world possessed, except me, unless they used highly advanced alchemy. Something Rima lacked compared to Yate, though they did manage to blast one eye out, turning it into a one-eyed monster. But the beast escaped and returned for a smart revenge, dodging the heavy ballistas to strike completely undefended areas instead. You saw that coming right now, Both nobles and commoners blamed a wire for provoking the dragon twice. Only her brothers Ri and Peter stepped up to defend her. Plus, her ties to Zaluka, a future great mage, saved her from royal punishment, so she sought counsel from her succubus master Shandi. This dragon issue was eating her alive, causing her to fail basic steps during her alchemy experiments. Shandi noticed this and told her to focus on alchemy while she handled the dragon. Awire was left completely confused. Usually her master would hand over some incredibly overpowered potion, but this was just a vague promise. She did not get her hopes up. What Awire did not know was that Shandi had someone very specific in mind. It had been a while since she spoke to her girlfriend Biddy, whose power was undeniable. She had tamed an almost colossal ice dragon. If that red dragon had not reached giant class yet, it stood absolutely zero chance against Biddy. And trust me, I knew Biddy very well. She actually saved my life once with the pendant that she gave me.